What's on, everybody? Big Kev's World here with PK Valor. Now, I know that some of you who are sub to me might recognize him from the wrestling show before. Um, I know you got something to say to a certain superstar, so I'm going to let you have the floor and say it.
Before we get started, Big Kev, I want to thank you for having me on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And before we get down to business here, I got a little message that I want to give out to Superstar Xavier.
Right.
I am a man of my word. I will not go by the former name that I did before, but God damn it, you should know I'm coming for you. Next time I see you in the ring, it ain't going to end the same. So you best believe, and I don't care if you got your fucking bodyguard with you here or not, your ass is grass, Michaels. So just consider yourself put on watch.
So it's pretty much anytime, any place, anywhere. Don't know where, don't know when.
No disrespect intended to you, Kev, but if you get in the way, I'll put you in the same lock that I'll put him in. I'll snap your ankle just like I'll snap his.
No disrespect taken. And if I have to do what I got to do, then no disrespect to you. And I'd have to rip your head off. I'd have to rip your head off. So, I mean, there's no disrespect. But I will say this, though. One thing I will say about you guys, that match you guys had and at the Screw City Rumble was probably one of the best ones that I've seen.
I take a lot of pride in that match. I wish it would have been a different outcome, and I would have taken his $40,000 and kept my name. But alas, that was not to be. So now it's just moving on, moving ahead, and we're going to go from there.
Well, now that you got everything you needed to say to Mr. Superstar, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're gonna roll into it now. Now we got that out of the way. Now we're gonna roll into it here. I want to ask you, Mike, what do you think, or PK, what do you think of a professional wrestling now compared to then? Like, what kind of triggers in your mind?
Wrestling to me now is, unfortunately, to me, it seems like it's going more downhill. WWE keeps pushing the same 2-3 guys, it seems, constantly. Not that I have anything against Brock Lesnar or Roman or Bobby Lashley. I've always identified, growing up, I was always the smaller guy, so I was the lucha style kind of watcher. I liked watching the cruiserweights in WCW, but I liked watching the cruiserweights that were like the Chris Jerichos, the Dean Malenkos. I have a lot of respect for the abilities of Eddie from WCW days when he was smaller, and Ray, because nobody can move around the ring like mid-late 90s Rey Mysterio, except for maybe Jushin Liger. Probably the only two that are in this area that I've ever, or not this area, but in my life that I've ever seen that moved around the way they did. There were others that were comparable too, like Juventud. He was really good and he was really fast in the ring, but a lot of them, I was always more the technical kind of ground and pound cruiserweight still guys that were the submission base versus high flyers. That being said, with that one, in AEW, it seems like that's all we're seeing too. Like, I cannot stand the Bucks. I like the Lucha Bros, but at the same time, I can't stand all the fucking flips. Pardon my language. I can't stand the flips and everything. I guess you can kind of call me like a Jim Cornette in that aspect because he can't stand all that, but I at least understand that a lot of the fans like that, so it's going to be what sells, regardless of what my opinion on it is.
Well, you and Xavier have something in common. When I brought him on my show before, he doesn't like the fact that AEW does too many Canadian destroyers, too many fucking Canadian destroyers.
Yeah, to me, a Canadian destroyer should be a match ender because where do you go from there?
You don't.
Just the spot itself on its own is an amazing looking spot because the move is dangerous enough without the flip added to a pile driver. So, I mean, there's been angles where people have been hurt, and then there's people that have legitimately been hurt from that maneuver. There's a reason why WWE has it banned unless you're a guy the size of like The Undertaker or Kane. And it's to prevent a Stone Cold. Owen Hart had no, as much as I love Owen Hart too, he had no business using a sit-out pile driver that fucked up Steve Austin's.
So I have to ask you, because when I've seen some of your work in the ring, you do have a lot of the Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, personas to you.
I try to do a lot of that. I try to let. I will be the first to say, I am a shit promo person. So it's kind of a good thing that I was never able to make it huge or make it big outside of anything but the wrestling show, to where I can just let my in-ring work speak for me. So, because as it goes for being on a microphone, I lack the confidence, unfortunately. I have all the confidence in my abilities to do this stuff in the ring, but give me a microphone and I start stuttering over my words like Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, jeez.
Because I don't have everything planned out and scripted, so I panic.
And also, too, like, it's also the memorization of what you want to say and the delivery of, sometimes some people do promos and they go overboard. Nate, I'm talking to you. Go a little long with your promos. And then there's some who are straight to the point and they're like quick. I had a friend that was kind of like you, but he was more of a high flyer. So when I retired from doing pro wrestling, I went to go help him. And he's like, "Look, I need help with my promos." And it took a little bit, but we got him there. Promos are not easy. And that's one thing about wrestling is people say, "Oh, well, the moves are hard." No, it is sitting in front of. It's like in front of the camera. I know Bret Hart had that problem.
It's getting the crowd to feel for you. That's getting in the ring and doing some of the stuff like taking your bumps and paying your dues. Essentially, if you're out of shape, it's rough. But when you're in phenomenal shape, like guys that are actually in even in AEW and WWE, it's literally like just waking up and just rolling out of bed for them because they're so used to it.
That's the thing. That's the thing I noticed about WWE. We'll switch to them on this one. One thing I noticed about WWE is I have nothing against Roman and Brock either. I love their storyline that's going on since SummerSlam and now. I got no problem with Bobby Lashley. But you're right. With WWE, I don't see maybe besides Edge, they give Edge some little base because of who Edge is. But maybe besides AJ Styles and Seth Rollins, I don't really see them pushing anybody like to the moon. I saw a guy.
I had high hopes when they first made that fruit by the foot belt for the Universal title, and they decided they were going to have the final match be between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. I was hyped. I loved it. I loved that they had Finn go over on Seth because I was a big Balor Prince Devitt fan. And unfortunately, that buckle bomb into the fucking outside barricade screwed up his shoulder, so he had to drop the belt the next day, essentially. He had to give it up. So it would have been nice to see what would have happened if Balor had not been injured during that match, to see what he would have done with that title.
Man, I love some of his stuff from the indie scene, like painting himself like Venom and
he's got Venom. He's done, I think, the Punisher. He's done a lot of different stuff, and I dig that. I kind of wish WWE would let him do that one now, but I'm pretty sure because of Marvel, they won't let him do stuff like that. When you're on the indie scene and you're not seen by millions upon millions of people for a pay-per-view, it's a little easier to fly under the radar. But
there was one guy in WWE, he's not in WWE anymore, but I thought should have been utilized and shot to the moon. And I always, because he had a real good look to him, but he also was technical. And that's Cesaro.
Oh, hell yeah.
I felt like he should have been already a world title guy.
Highly underrated. I don't think the guy really ever had a bad match with anybody.
No.
He made everybody look great. And even his Ring of Honor work was good. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up, because I really hope he doesn't end up in AEW. I'd like to see him go to New Japan or All Japan Pro. And even if he's only there for a couple of years and he comes back to WWE, because I think the guy's 40 or 41 now. So, I mean, he's not just, or maybe even late 30s, but he's not some young 20s kind of guy. But I don't know if they'll even give him a chance because WWE's shifting away their stuff and they're not going to start targeting indie wrestlers anymore. From some reports that I read the other day on Google, they're going to start looking at people that were in other sports avenues and train them to be professional wrestlers on top of being athletes from whatever else they were.
I think they're going back to that homegrown style like they did with Roman Reigns and like they did with some of their guys. They're trying to go back to that homegrown style.
Yeah, it'd be kind of nice to do that, but at the same time, some of these indie guys are people that have a name. I mean, I'd take it if I had the opportunity to take a guy that was a pro NFL player, like a former Bill Goldberg, or take a guy who's honed his craft, like AJ Styles in New Japan for 2 or 3 years and made it big over there. I want the AJ Styles-esque character. I want that guy because he knows how to get a crowd. People are going to know who the hell he is too because of New Japan. I didn't even know until I actually got to meet Bill Goldberg when I used to live in little podunk city, Sterling, Illinois, because WCW had a pay-per-view here in Rockford. I didn't even know that Bill Goldberg had fucking played football. And he was sitting there talking about it, doing autographs and everything. And I'm like, wait, you played in the NFL? He goes, yeah, I was for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm like, oh, well, more you know. I didn't know that, dude.
I mean, we were talking about this, and I know some people who are sub to me, we love kind of making fun of AEW. We go AEW wrestling, and it pisses a lot of AEW fans off.
Well, this one may piss some of your fans off, but I have to agree with Jim Cornette on this one. Kenny Omega sucks on the microphone because he sounds like he wants to be a phone sex operator. In ring, great worker. One Winged Angel, I hate the setup for the finishing move. I'm glad that they keep it protected because that is how a finisher should be. It should be a protected move. There's only been 3, maybe 4 finishers throughout the entire history of wrestling that nobody has ever kicked out of, period. One of them was the Razor's Edge. Nobody ever kicked out of it, period. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of what other ones were, but...
There's another one in the women's division. No one has kicked out of the Widow's Peak that Tara Victoria did.
That is correct. Tara's.
And it was safe. And my problem with AEW, and I tell anybody this, I just don't like Tony Khan. That's the first thing. I feel like Tony Khan is that guy. He does
give me kind of that. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. He does give me that rich kid. Like, I've got this new toy. I can do whatever I want with it.
Thank you. Exactly what I was going to say.
But, I mean, he's still – his profit margin keeps going up. So, I mean, he's not doing horrible. He just needs to – he needs to learn to let some of his talent go. We're not – I mean, he didn't re-sign some people. Like, he didn't re-sign Joey Janela, which was for the better because I think Joey Janela kind of sucks in the ring. But that's my opinion.
I feel like to some of these free agents, and I feel like this because I look at this. If I was a free agent and I left WWE or AEW, I would want to go to New Japan and do my craft. But at the same time, I look at a company like NWA Power, and I look at a company like Impact Wrestling who's trying to get back up on the market. I'm sort of thinking, well, if I sign with them, I can get them back on the map.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be my way of thinking. Like, okay, let's open this door. Let's see, like, spread this out so that way it's more like it's not just WWE I can go to or AEW. I can go here now.
Yeah, you could go to Impact. You got both Japans. I think there's even MLW still.
Yep.
Major League. Then they've put out a few good people, and I know the old school guys have spoken. A few of them have spoken pretty highly about MLW. So.
I miss, the one thing I do, I mean, like I grew up on the territory and I grew up watching the golden era of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I miss about the golden era of wrestling is that compared to wrestling now is I'm not trying to say that these guys. I don't feel like that if you weigh two. This is how I feel. If you weigh a buck 90 or
Yeah.
205 pounds, I don't think you should be wearing the world heavyweight championship. That's just something that I was looking at it because I'm like, I know that it might be different for you.
I kind of can get behind that one. And that's no disrespect to an individual like Rey Mysterio that they put that on after Eddie Guerrero passed away. But if you've got that many people that are the size of like Paul White's, Brock Lesnar's, Roman's, it kind of ruins the illusion. But at the same time, it does go to show that sometimes it's the size of the fight, not the size of the dog in the fight. But realistically, you said you're, since we've talked before, you said you're what, 6'2", I think, like 330 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Feasibly, I'm 5'11", 205 pounds. There's no reason why you wouldn't be able to just fold me up like a flapjack. And in no time, if you wanted me to stay down for a 3 count, I'm staying down for a 3 count. There's no way.
I'm pretty quick on my feet too, which is
also yeah, because it's all you've really got to do is you just got to just drape yourself across my chest and just go dead weight. Nobody's picking 300 pounds up dead weight off their chest. So, and that's pretty much how it could have been with anybody versus Rey Mysterio or even a Finn Balor, unfortunately, or Seth Rollins. So
when you look at AEW, my problem also too with AEW wrestling is I feel like that they're trying to sign everybody that WWE releases, and it's like
I feel the same way on that one, and I really hope that what Tony Khan does is he stops that one, or if he's going to kind of do some of that one, pick and choose. Don't just WWE let these 20 people go, time to sign all 20. Just kind of. Like, all right, maybe I'll take 5 or 6 of you, and I'll let the other ones kind of just go about their way. And like with Adam Cole, it made sense for Adam Cole to come since he had history with Omega and the Young Bucks and everything. And then they brought a couple of the other guys in from. Oh Christ, I'm drawing a blank on what the little faction that they had on NXT was.
Oh, it was Undisputed.
Yeah, the Undisputed Era, but they brought in a couple of those guys. What was it, Bobby Fish and somebody else? It would make sense because now all of a sudden, now you've got it to where it can be Undisputed Era and the Young Bucks vying for trying to get Adam Cole to side with them and having this storyline play out for a long time before he finally makes a choice and then just kind of do whatever you want with the team. Have them side with the Undisputed Era, and there's your next, if you decide to have another faction war thing, which hopefully they don't, if they do that again, they don't do like they did with the Pinnacle and Inner Circle and have it go for like 4 years, because that was ridiculous. Side note on that one, I'm really glad that they started that whole Wardlow MJF angle finally. They've been teasing that one for months. And I'm glad that they're finally about to pull the flipping trigger on that one. And they started it with the CM Punk MJF match. I don't think there could have been any other way for that match to end except for with Wardlow turning on MJF and kickstarting that one, because then it ends that feud with Punk. That really Punk had no business even trying to kickstart that one, because in my opinion, MJF's the hottest heel in the business right now.
Yeah,
I can't think of anybody better. Promos, he's on fire for promos. He's got the kayfabe down. He stays in character on everything. Watch him on TikTok. Watch him on his Twitter. I would love to have an interview with MJF, and I don't care if he spent that whole time ripping on me.
Xavier was talking to me about on Twitter that his mom said something. He's even got his family in the act.
Yeah. His mom I've seen his Twitter. His mom said, "I remember when you weren't an asshole." Like, if you've got your family that's willing to go to the ends of the earth to back your character for your career, you have done it. Nobody in WWE has ever had their character pushed like that by their own family.
No.
And MJF is literally, to me, rewriting the book on being a heel. And he's bringing back something that we needed. We need to have kayfabe back. And unfortunately, WWE has shot it.
You know what I love about MJF is he has that old Ric Flair to him where he basically say, shut up, fat boy, and sit down, shut up, fat boy.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes these little comments towards people, and I think it's great. And you're right. I feel like when you got Punk in that situation, I know Punk is what people call the god on the mic, the voice of the voiceless or whatever. Because I'm not really a huge CM Punk fan.
Me neither. I mean, he's not horrible on the mic, but I do feel that there's been better people on the microphone than Punk. Punk, 20 years from now, the only thing as it goes for any kind of promo work that Punk is ever going to be known for is he's going to be known for that one pipe bomb. And that's because it was a worked shoot. They let him have some freedom with it. And it was just, okay. Yeah. But aside from that one, I can't really think of too many other CM Punk historical moments on a microphone.
And then you have some AEW fans who are like, oh my God, Punk debuted. It was such a big reaction. It was in Chicago. What did you expect? I mean, it's
just like when he had the Money in the Bank match with John Cena. I mean, it was a good match. People are going to remember that one because he won the belt, and then Cena supposedly was being fired because he lost, and it was in Chicago. It was in Punk's hometown. You couldn't have written a better story for that one.
And I felt like, and that's what I was saying, because I felt like when they put Punk with MJF, I was excited about it because I was hoping that MJF was going to crush him, and he did on the mic.
Oh yeah, on the mic, he absolutely owned Punk. No doubt about it, in my opinion, too.
I mean, but let me ask you this. I know you like some of the older wrestlers, but how do you feel that a 62-year-old Sting is still out there doing what he does, and he's out there?
I did not think Sting was going to do that spot. Just like people I've seen on TikTok and on Twitter, I was expecting it to be a coffin drop for Darby. I was not expecting Sting to do a splash and go through the tables.
Especially with that neck injury he has.
Well, it's not even that. It's at 62 years old to do it. I mean, I know we've seen Ric Flair in his 60s or 70s do a few Money in the Bank ladder matches and take the ladder suplex bump. And I've got, especially with his back being how it is, unless it's bullshit with how his back was broken in that plane accident years ago. I've heard tons of conflicting stories about that, but obviously I was not even alive then, so I'm not going to speculate on whether I think it's true or horseshit.
Right.
I will let Rick have his 5 minutes of fame with that one and his opinion, and I won't argue with him because I don't know.
So when you do see Sting though, and he finally did go to WWE, do you feel like WWE didn't utilize him the way they were supposed to?
I don't think I think they brought him in, and they had a good idea to bring him in, but then when they actually had him have some of his matches, like there was no reason why Triple H needed to win at that WrestleMania. In my opinion, how I would have booked that match is after you had the NW or the DX guys come out, and then NWO come out. Triple H hits him with the sledgehammer, but Sting connects with the bat at the same time, and you got a double 10 count. And they're both out. The match ends in a no contest, and you've got the NWO and DX fighting it out. And it just turns into a brawl. That match, in my eyes, had way too much of Vince and Triple H just saying, we're going to finally beat the one person that came from WCW years and years later that we never actually beat. And it breaks my heart because I was a big Sting fan from the early 90s up until even now.
A lot of people felt like it wasn't like a lot of people thought it made no sense because you have Sting getting help from the NWO. You're like, wow, these guys have been in feuds for a long time.
Yeah, they've got history. Yeah, there was a short period of time where he was in the red and black, with Hall and Nash for a short period, but he never, as far to my knowledge, he never really officially joined the white and black NWO Team Hollywood.
He did one time, but it was like for like a brief, maybe like a day or two, and then it was a '97 Uncensored when he just went berserk on the NWO. So it was kind of like,
so it was like kind of like the Daniel Bryan joining the Wyatt family thing. It was one of those, or Randy Orton joining the Wyatts just to get close and then kind of massacre from inside.
right.
So I mean, yeah, and then I guess then it would kind of make sense, but I mean, I'll admit I popped when DX came out, I popped, and then when NWO came out to help Sting out, I popped just as loud. I was happy, but I think the lead up to the match was better than the match itself could have been.
But I think
they made Triple H look like he was just absolutely scared shitless of getting in the ring with Sting. Like he'd have the sledgehammer, Sting would pull the bat out, Triple H would, okay, maybe not, maybe I won't get in here. And they sold the promos and the lead ups perfect. But then when you actually got into the ring, it was two guys that had no business being in the ring together.
I actually like that because I would have been in a count out or as a double both, like a draw, and then I would have had those two fight at SummerSlam to finally
that would have been okay.
To finally do it and figure it out. I think when Sting got hurt with that buckle bomb, I think WWE just was so worried about him getting hurt that they just wouldn't let him wrestle. So I feel like when he did that Hall of Fame speech, he's like, "Hey, I'm retiring," but I don't think he fully wanted to retire because he kept wanting one guy and one guy only, and that's The Undertaker.
Yeah, everybody. That would have been a nice dream match, but then really, how do you have that one in too? Because do you really want? Because nobody really would want Sting to lose, but nobody would want Taker's streak to end then too. So it'd almost be like it had to be one of those situations of like WrestleMania 9 with Giant Gonzalez, where it wasn't really he lost by like a count out or disqualification, but because they tried to like chloroform the Undertaker or something like that. And
yeah.
It was a sham match. It was ridiculous. That one was all about just pageantry for that WrestleMania. It was kind of a garbage one. And then everything that happened after that got overshadowed by Hogan. He had a decent match with Brutus against Money Inc. In my opinion, it wasn't a horrible match for a Hogan match. Nothing personal.
Nope.
Growing up, I was a Hogan fan, but then when I found out about all the different politicking shit that he did because he didn't want to come off the top of the mountain, it's like, I was a fan of this? What the hell? Well, obviously, as a kid, you don't know about this stuff.
The one thing I will say, though, is when he did come back in 2002,
he definitely had it. He was not the same Hogan as the 90s and 80s Hogan. He was willing to do a job, except for with Shawn Michaels.
Well, what's interesting was I remember the match he had with Kurt Angle. And Kurt Angle was talking about on this podcast. He's like, me and Vince went into Hogan's locker room going, "Hey, finish is you're going to tap out to the ankle lock." And Kurt Angle's like, "Watch, Hogan's going to say no." Hogan's like, "Sure."
Yeah, that would have, if I would have been Angle, that probably would have floored me. I would have been like, "Huh?"
Yeah. That's what Angle said. He's like, "You mean tell me he's going to let me?" I mean, I'm like, I think it got to a point where, with politics and wrestling and stuff like that, I think another thing that's different about wrestling now is social media.
Yeah.
That's the biggest
thing. If there would have been social media, ironically, I'm looking at social media right now because my Twitter and my Snapchat and everything are blowing up because people are like, "Oh, you're doing your show, right? Yeah, if you're going to hop on, go watch it. It's on YouTube live now, man."
And that's one thing too. I like the aspect of that. Yeah, they had a little bit of internet around the Attitude Era, but it wasn't like a big thing. It was like, hey, AOL or Juno or
it's if you wanted to get the dirt sheets. I mean, that was in the days of dial-up. So might
and good luck doing that too.
Mm-hmm. If you don't have your parents from the other room, get off the internet. I need to make a phone call.
Or the time when someone would make it, or someone would call you to kick you offline, and you're like, "Well, shit, I was just reading this."
Yep, gotta love that one.
But the one thing too with AEW, and when we go back to them, is the one thing I do like about Sting on there is that Sting does give them that veteranship, and
Yes.
the fact that Sting is out there busting his ass
Mm-hmm.
at 62 years old, it's pretty much a fuck you to WWE at that point.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's not the only. You've got Dustin. You've got Dustin Runnels out there too. He's in his late 50s. He's still out there kind of rocking and rolling. Some of his best work, I think, has been in AEW versus WWE.
Now, I have to ask you: do you like? I think you might like this guy, but I know that Xavier Michaels loves Dan Hausen.
I honestly, I don't know much about him. I've never really seen any of his stuff. I know that Xavier likes him a lot, and to be honest, I kind of see the same. I can kind of see similarities because they're really goofy individuals.
This is true.
To kind of break the kayfabe here, Xavier behind the curtain when you're not fighting with each other, he's a goofy, down to earth guy. He's a really good dude. Danhausen, just to me, he looks kind of like he's trying to be like a mix of like the Boogeyman and Papa Shango, but like an updated voodoo style character for that, but not going to the full extreme. And he's like a third of the size of both of them.
I've gotten to know him a little bit now. I watched his YouTube channel, Dan Helson's, and he got his idea from watching a lot of horror films because his face does look like that. If you ever seen The Exorcist, his face looks like the devil's, and that's how he's got a face painted. But
yeah,
but
I mean, if it works, if the gimmick works, don't fix it. If people know who you are, and it's giving you popularity, it's giving you a paycheck, by all means, continue to do it, man. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. That's if you're comfortable with your character, go for it.
It's interesting that we talked about people like you got the new wrestling fans who seem to. You have the casual wrestling fans who are just like, hey, I'm gonna go to a show with my family and my friends. And then you got the diehards like us who will kind of will watch from a distance to see what's going on. And I don't know if you were a fan of Steve Austin or not, but
yep, I was a big Stone Cold fan.
What's your feelings about him doing this thing with Kevin Owens?
If he's medically cleared and he's in shape and he wants to do it, go for it. I mean, they kind of make it sound like he wants to. He makes it sound like he doesn't want to, so he might swerve us and say no. And he might just come out and he could be the reason why Owens loses the match by actually hitting him with a real stunner. And because in a lot of their videos that you've seen, like they've had an interview where it's been, I don't know if it's the KO show or if it's Austin's podcast, they're talking about him doing the stunner to a Roman Reigns, and it looked like garbage. And Stone Cold just like, there's a reason why I do the kick first, you idiot.
Actually, what happened was on Raw. I saw a little bit of what happened on Raw. Owens came out calling out Austin. He called out Austin.
Yeah,
and he said, "Come on the KO show." And I saw Austin's promo the next day, and Austin pretty much short and sweet. For two reasons. I'm going to come there in Texas. He said that loss to The Rock haunted him for 19 years.
Yeah.
And he said, whether it's a fight or a shoot or whatever it is, he's coming to Texas to whoop his ass. And that's.
I mean, I'd watch it. I don't know if I'm actually going to get Mania this year because I don't have Peacock myself. I mean, it's not to say that I couldn't really quick go, yeah, I think it's time to get a Peacock subscription and check it out. But there's a lot of stuff that used to be on the network that they don't have over on the Peacock yet. So it's one of those like, because I miss watching the network.
So if you were we'll have some little fun here. If you took the wrestling show cast, some of the guys on there, who would you put on WWE and who would you put in AEW?
Truthfully, I'd probably put us all in AEW. As much as I detest some of the stuff, it's just AEW's got guys that it would look more realistic for every one of us to wrestle against. Because we're not the 250 to 300 pound jacked bodybuilder looks. I mean, we're folks that just we get in the ring because we love to get in the ring.
Right.
Matt reminds me kind of like an Orange Cassidy, but Cassidy, but cares a little bit more. But he's got that body frame.
Yeah.
Kate looks like she'd fit in more with the gals in AEW versus WWE. Not to say that she may like that. She may prefer to be with the Bianca Belairs and Sasha's and
The Charlotte
but I
Flair.
could with Charlotte's, but I could definitely see her and Britt Baker having a pretty good match, pretty good fight. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I could definitely see Xavier Michaels going and teaming up with MJF, even if it's for just a 1 or 2 off. And I would definitely love to get into the ring with Mox and Brian. Because I think there's a lot that I could learn from both of them with the body language. I exhibit more of like a John Moxley. But the in-ring work, I try to emulate, like you said, the individuals like the Benoits, the Dean Malenkos, the Bryan Danielsons. That's the more technical. And then Josh, Chaos, or even as Quail Justice, you could stick him with the rest of the best friends. You could stick him with Chris Statlander and Trent and Orange Cassidy. I think he'd fit in perfect. I don't know if Josh is going to hear this one and like that, but he might get pissed because I don't think he likes Orange Cassidy in them. But obviously, it's even though he's still young, I'll include Aiden, and I could definitely see Aiden being kind of mentored by individuals like Chris Jericho and Jake Hager, former Jack Swagger. Have him get managed by either Tully or Arn.
Oh, we forgot about JB.
I can see JB getting managed by Roberts. I would love to see him get managed by Jake Roberts. JB may not like that one. I don't know what his views are on Jake Roberts, but he's highly underrated for the wrestling show crew.
He is, definitely. Yeah.
And then if we bring you and Mel in, I could see you having a couple of good matches with Keith Lee.
Oh my God, me and Keith. Yeah, we would tear down.
I mean, because none of the rest of us could even really hold up to Keith. You're the biggest one out of the group.
Now, me and Keith would have a lot. I'd have a lot of fun with Keith Lee, and I think that's another guy who was underutilized.
Oh hell yeah, he was. He was one of the most athletic big guys I have ever seen in WWE in recent years. Weight wise, not like height wise, but weight wise, the man was very athletic for his size.
And I felt like Samoa Joe wasn't used very well either. I mean, like he had the injury plague.
He was injury prone, but then his weight kept fluctuating. Like if you look at him versus when he was in Impact, he's a lot bigger in WWE than he was, like weight wise. Like he looks like he's chunkier. Now he was still able to put on some good matches, but with people that weren't Brock Lesnar, because Brock at this point is just a gimmick. It's F5s and German suplexes.
Let me ask you this, because I heard a lot of people talk about this Brock. The Brock that we're seeing now, who's actually himself, and I saw his interview that he had on the Pat McAfee show, and we're seeing.
Oh my God, that interview was great, and he broke the table.
Yeah, I mean,
McAfee lost his shit so hard laughing at that. No, I did too. But
so, what did you think about it? What do you?
I kind of like this version of Brock.
Right.
I think this version of Brock is without Paul Heyman. He's allowed to. Not that Brock's necessarily needed Heyman to talk for him, but it worked better for the character as a heel for Heyman to do the talking for him. Because Paul Heyman's he's a savant. Him and Jim Cornette are two of the best on the microphone that are still in the business. Number one in my heart's always going to be Bobby Heenan, but that's just because you can't beat the brain.
I've met Jim Cornette at a convention, and Jim told me a lot of funny stories, and especially one story he told me, and I talked about it in the Attitude Era with Jay and Matt, but
Mm-hmm.
He told me that Jerry Lawler has a lock of Shawn Michaels' hair in a Ziploc bag because
Yep.
apparently,
I've heard that story too.
and probably Jerry Lawler was wearing white pants when he was taking a shit while they were fighting in the locker room. So it's kind of like when he told me that story, I was cracking up. His way he
Oh
was
yeah, he's got about the size of a small dog, I think is what it is. This is a chunk of Shawn Michaels' hair from them. And the thing that I love about that, I know we're getting away from the Brock thing, but to me, this is actually where I really started loving both the characters for Shawn and Brett. A lot of people don't know this one or they'll be in denial. That started off as a work, like a not a legitimate hatred. Like until Shawn crossed the line and did the Sunny Days deal, that was when it became a personal thing and it was no longer work. And that's where the true rivalry between Shawn and Brett really started to turn the way it did. Before that, they'd talk with each other backstage and be like, hey, we're going to say this one. They didn't tell anybody backstage, producers, McMahon, the boys. The boys all thought in the backstage that they legitimately hated each other because they were doing so many scathing promos and interviews about the opposite person. They were swerving even the boys backstage, and it was putting asses in seats. And that is amazing to do. And if they could get that to happen nowadays, wrestling would be on the trend back upward instead of just either steady running or starting to nosedive. It's becoming the two big players.
Yep.
One's got roller coaster storylines for the most part, and the other one's just become stale.
Now with the whole Brock Lesnar thing, the one thing I love about his humor now.
Oh yeah.
And that thing is when he was fighting Austin Theory, he ended up when he did the whole F5 to him, he did the whole snapshot with the phone and
mm-hmm.
and Brock's just embracing.
Yeah, he's allowed to. He doesn't have to be the monster heel, so he's allowed to kind of give his humorous side up and just kind of be more of himself because outside of the ring, that's the way the man is. I've heard stories about him meeting fans, and it's just the guy is kind of like Bailey. He's a hugging kind of guy. He's a really down to earth, chill dude. He's not a complete douche canoe like he portrays like as a heel. It's just and it's really great. I follow him on Twitter and TikTok because I like seeing what he does with his farm stuff for butchering, and Jesus Christ, the guy just loves doing what he does there too. So when he's ready to hang the boots up for good, I mean, he's got that fucking farm that's going to make him a hell of a lot of money still.
So let me ask you this: when they're having Undertaker in the Hall of Fame this year, well deserved.
Yes, finally,
well deserved, well should have been. When you hear people make comments that the Undertaker is going to be at WrestleMania, that he should not come back or he should stay retired, that he's not that great. How does that make you feel as a wrestling fan?
As a wrestling fan, hearing that one, it does kind of upset me. But at the same time, I feel that these are people that are forgetting just how much great stuff the Undertaker has done too throughout the course of his career.
Right.
Because I mean, I know that there's been some people that have said that there's been debacles like the match with Goldberg, the Brothers of Destruction versus DX, basically his Saudi Arabia matches. But we're not getting prime Taker then. Like, we're getting Taker that's been sitting around for 10, 11 months, coming and doing this, making $10 million for that one show out there in Saudi Arabia, and then going back home and sitting on his couch for the next 10, 11 months. So and the guy's got problems with his knees. He's got problems with his hips. Years and years of doing tombstones, it's going to take its toll on you. Kind of like Hogan with his back. He's had, 4 or 5 back surgeries from that leg drop?
10 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It just, that's what we do It literally does shorten our lives, but we do it because we love putting on the show for the fans. And I speak not only as somebody on the wrestling show, but I speak probably for pretty much anybody who's in the industry. I think none of them will disagree. There might be the occasional one that's like, it's a paycheck. It's a paycheck now. Well, it wasn't always a paycheck to you. You got into the business and the industry because you loved the industry. So
the first time I got into the industry, the first thing I was doing, I was actually a road crew guy. I was actually working on the rings, fixing the rings.
And that's how a lot of them start. I remember one of the first outings or first times I ever saw the Hardy Boys. It was not even them being in the ring. They were doing like jobber material stuff. And this was when Mabel was still, Viscera was known as Mabel, King Mabel. They're carrying him on their shoulders, the Hardys and two other guys, to the ring to fight The Undertaker in a casket match. I mean, you got guy, and now Jeff Hardy just debuted in AEW. 25 years later, maybe 30 years later, almost. But yeah, everybody started out either in the jobber part of it, or road crew, or even just a plant. It could be a multitude of different areas that got you into it.
Now, when we're talking about plants, I'm actually glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you this opinion. But I talked to a couple of guys I know here in Nashville that are actually our wrestling fans, and we discussed it. And it was on my birthday, and they were like, "Hey, Kev, we know you're a big Hogan fan. Do you think Hogan was a plant by Vince to go into WCW with Nash and Hall and kill it?" And
I don't think so.
I was like, yeah,
because
I don't think so, nah.
Because Hogan left a couple of years before they did. He left 2 or 3 years before they did. So that would be one hell of a long game to play, to let Hogan go to your competitor and make that kind of money, and then let two of your biggest names at the time in WWE go to the competition, just to hope that the three of them kill off your competition eventually. What happened? That's too high risk, high reward. In this case, it would have been one of those that the risk gave you that reward, but what happens if that plan backfires? So what happens if all three of them go over there and they do like what happened with Bret Hart, where they completely screwed the pooch? I mean, when Bret Hart signed with WCW and debuted, he was literally the hottest thing on the planet at the moment, and they dropped the ball.
I wouldn't have had Bret debuted until after Starrcade. The only reason why I say that is because you don't want to ruin the thing you build with Hogan and Sting.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have had him wait.
Well, it didn't help with that match, though, that match got screwed up by politics because of Hogan and Nick Patrick. If Hogan wouldn't have, because again, as a kid now to an adult, seeing the stuff that Hogan did to people in the ring. Now, granted, he's not the first. He won't be the last that's ever done it. But he is.
Cena's done it too. I've heard some rumors about Cena.
Cena did it. Cena did it to Barrett. Cena did it to Nexus. There is no reason Nexus couldn't have, after building up Nexus in the mid-2010s or early 2010s area, the way that they did, there was no reason why Cena should have just destroyed him and destroyed Wade Barrett as soon as he did. It breaks my heart for that one, because Wade Barrett was a highly underrated character too. Or not, I guess I shouldn't just say character, but just individual. Provided he got a hell of a lot of more popularity when he became Bad News Barrett, because of the way he'd start out his promos with the "I've got bad news for you," because you got the entire crowd popping along with that like Fandango with his music.
So what's your take on Goldberg? Do you think I was thinking about this, but do you think Goldberg should just go ahead and ride off in the sunset now that he's fought Roman?
Yes, Goldberg, and I feel that the only reason they're bringing Goldberg still in is he's probably still obviously under a contract of some sort.
And the Saudis.
Yep. Nothing against, I don't know if there's any fans that are going to be watching this from the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. There's nothing against you fine individual people. Much love, much respect for you guys. It's your leaders that are high up on the hype of the old school guys. Now, that being said, if there was going to be a show where it was all mid-late 90s, early 90s wrestlers that was coming around, I'd get tickets to that in a heartbeat. The Ricky the Dragon Steamboats and guys like that, because that's what I grew up idolizing was the Savages, Steamboat, early 90s, late 80s Flair, the not NWO, the Four Horsemen, like earlier iterations, not the watered down WCW where it's Flair, Anderson, Mr. Perfect, who was another one that I really liked.
Steve McMichael.
Steve McMichael, who's also not a bad individual. I've met him before too at a golf tournament. He is I tell you what though, Kev, I put that guy's ring, like I think I've got a decent size hand for my age and size.
Yeah.
His ring was about twice the size of my thumb, and I'm just looking at it wearing this thing like, holy fuck.
I went to a WrestleMania Access once, and I have big hands. But I was like, you got big hands. I put my hands next to Andre's thing, and it was like, oh my God.
Like, I make jokes. I'll get the little, like, the 7-ounce cans of Pepsi just so I know it's like, this is what Andre felt holding a 12-ounce can of beer.
Yeah.
Because that's what it looks like, is you've got that, and you look at him holding a normal can of beer, and then you grab that same 12-ounce can, and it's just like, oof.
I take a look at the wrestling today, and one thing that really irks me about wrestling today is the writing.
A lot of it is that. I know the writing wasn't always the greatest in the late 90s, or as we got closer to the Attitude Era, because you had, and it put asses in seats. It was kind of a reminiscence of a mix between pro wrestling and the Jerry Springer or Steve Wilkos show, or Maury even. So as much as I hate the guy, it is Ed Ferrara and Vince Russo that kind of made things the way they are. But at the same time, I cannot stand both of those gentlemen. Ed Ferrara for a whole different reason, and that's because I love JR, and they decided to do that whole Oklahoma angle in WCW where they just...
And they were making fun of his ball palsy.
Mm-hmm, they made fun, and that was where, to me, they crossed the line, is they made fun of the Bell's palsy. Mm-hmm. It's I know before we went on the air and before when we were talking the other day, it's to that one, it's just kind of like the interview that happened the other day with Timon and them. Timon was asked to leave the kids out. The first thing he did was, fuck that, I'm going right after this one. No, there's some lines that you don't cross. And that being said, that's the only thing for that one, because I originally said I wasn't going to bring any of that up. I wanted to keep it just down to business, but I felt that that's the only comparison that could be made on just how dirty that was.
And I thought what was really, and to be honest with you, I know if Matt and Kate, if you're watching, I know that I had Kayla on my show, but I kept it brief and I didn't go deep into anything. I just let her talk about her stuff, and I basically said, look, nothing about the kids. Don't mention anything about anybody's kids, because I have two nieces and 2 nephews that I love dearly, and I would not want something like that being brought up myself. So
I agree. I've got a 13-year-old daughter that has actually wanted to be on the show to wrestle with Aiden and me. So, and this was years ago. So this was when Aiden was still even younger yet, and my daughter watched me have my very first match with Matt inside of their house. So.
And that kid, when he gets older, is going to be a beast. I mean, he is athletically good.
Matt and Kate definitely have. There's a reason. I have to agree with them. There's a reason why their kid is called the Prodigy. That boy is going to go places, and I have nothing but love and respect for wanting to see him continue on and build his craft. So,
I mean, honestly, the way I look at it too, with the whole the whole situation that and I know you had to bring up the Timon part because that was the best way to describe what you're talking about. I got it,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I saw that interview and I thought it was kind of tasteless to start going in
It
on.
was more of a smear. It wasn't everybody's talking and getting their sides out. It was just I viewed it as I watched the entire thing 2 or 3 times. And to me it just turned into a smear. Timon had wanted me to be on it. And originally I was going to be at work, but I had had a migraine for a couple of days prior to that, so I just took a couple of days off work
Right.
and said, "No, I'm not going to be a part of that." Nate was asked if he wanted to be on it. Nate declined being on there too. Nate said he may never want to talk about anything that happened there. He may just want to let it all sit and go. And that's probably the
Yes, that's
best
what
thing
Nate
to
told
do.
me. Yeah, that's what Nate told me. Yep. Yep.
And that's really good of Nate to do. But yeah, it just I don't know. It just that yeah, I agree with you. It was tasteless. That interview it wasn't it was people telling their side and kind of airing some things that nobody knew, but
It
not
was
everything was part of it that people needed to really know.
when I saw that interview and I watched it over a second time because I watched it when I got back watching the Batman, and then I watched it the second time. The second time I was able to dissect it more. First time I was watching, I was like, "Ooh, shit." Second time I watched it, I was like, it looks like to me it was just a Timon and Alex show, and Kayla really didn't have much of an opportunity to.
Yeah,
Speak.
Kayla said her little bit that she needed to,
Yeah,
and she let it go at that.
and that's what she did on mine. I let her say her little few minutes thing, and I'm like, let's just move on
Mm-hmm.
from it, be done
Yeah,
with it, and that's how it should be. But you and I know that if and I know this on the indie scene in the wrestling world too. There's politics behind that one as well.
yep,
There's
and
a lot of people that don't like each other. There's a lot of people out there that are striving to be number one. They're striving to be the best. I'll be honest with you. I feel like, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion,
yeah,
JB's on the comment section saying, "I wish that they would have told the truth, honestly." You know,
understandable too,
understandable.
completely, JB.
So the one thing I'll say too about that is that I when I see your talent, I saw you and Jay's match. I see a guy like JB, who's blossom, who's really good at what he does,
Oh yeah,
and I see Courtney, and I'm looking at that, and I'm just like, I feel like this is the only thing I will have against the wrestling show. This is the only bad thing I will say, and it's a really respectful thing too. I would be booking you guys a hell of a lot more than what they're doing. That's all I will say,
yeah.
flat out.
I mean, it's when I signed up for being with the show, I knew it wasn't. It's the wrestling show, but at the end of the day, I know that was how other people needed to make some money. So it's
Mm-hmm.
along the way, I kind of lost sight of that one, and I needed I got a reality check. I got a reality check the hard way by being told we don't want you around right now. So thankfully, I've had a few conversations with Matt since then. We've buried the hatchet, and they've asked me to return to the show. He said, we may not need you all the time, but when we need you, I'll let you know. And I said, hey, I'm okay with that. So
And that's the
I
time.
know,
Sorry.
before when Matt first had told me that it was for the time being, they didn't want to work with me. I told him I completely understand for the part that I played in that. Then and the fuel that I threw on the fire, I apologized. I took my lumps like a man about it, and I told him I still wished him all the best of luck going forward with everything, and I hope the show continued to kick ass. So, and it still has, so I'm happy for him for that.
That's the one thing too. Like when I see a guy like you, and I see a guy like JB, and I see a guy like Josh and Jay. That's what intrigues me, and it intrigues my competitive part of me. That's still been. I haven't had that side of me in a long time. And when
Mm-hmm.
I watched you guys, and I watched you and Jay's match in particular, I'm like, I looked at Mel and I'm like, I'm dying inside. And she's like, "What do you mean dying inside? Like in a bad way?" I'm like, "No, I am dying into like wanting to get in there because these guys are making it fun and then making it to where I just want to be like, you know what? I need to go back in the gym. Give me a couple months. Let me do this. We'll do it."
Yeah.
And that's how I was. That's how it was about it. I'm like, man, this is just so interesting. That was so unique. I mean, you don't see a show like that on there a lot, and that's something I will say about it. You don't see something like that all the time.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get back on. Let's get back onto it now because I don't want to.
No, of course not.
I don't want to spend our time with that one because I don't want it to be one of those where somebody says something and we've all of a sudden now we've got another fight. I don't want to have any drama between anybody. There's been enough drama. There's been enough drama with all the cast to go around for the next 10 years, and I wish. From the bottom of my heart, for my part of it, I am sorry for everything that I've caused. That's caused anybody any kind of pain on either side. I do wish that everybody was able to work everything out and we could all have a cast again. But because I take it back, there actually is one other thing that I will say, and this one is because one of the statements that Timon made was he said that when they started talking about the family aspect and how it sounded like a cult, he kind of checked out. Well, motherfucker, I was the one that started telling everybody that. I was the one that started integrating that one in because that's what we were. If you look at it, when you're working with people like that and you're trusting your life with them or your health, you need to be able to trust them with your life, like family. Yeah, you can't always trust all your family, but I was the one who was kind of trying to drill that into everybody so that I do have to agree with JB on that one too. I can see in the comments section here that Matt and I have since talked about that one too, and I'm not going to dispute that one. That he straight up Timon had called me or Nate a snake, and I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, man. But that's neither here nor there at this point.
Some people live their lives in a very hateful way.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be the kind of guy back in the day where I would hold grudges for a long time, and it's the whole mental illness part where I would hold something there for a while. But the older I've gotten, 40 years old, I'm sitting there thinking, I ain't got time to worry about it.
And that's the view I'm trying to take at it now. Is I'm only 35, but I'm trying to. I don't have time for the high school teenage games anymore. It's just if I want to get in the ring, I want to wrestle, I want to have my fun.
Right.
I still consider the individuals my friends. The stuff that happened that I wasn't a part of, I don't want to speculate or be here nor there on it because it's not something that directly affects me. Mm-hmm. So I can't let something like that affect me that had no effect on me or even had anything to do with me in the beginning.
I feel like now that everything's all out in the open, everybody said what they gotta say. I think everybody who's involved should just go their own ways. Don't worry about it anymore.
That's how it should be. Like it'd be nice at the same time to see reconciliation and maybe see Kayla get back in the ring. I know that she did have some problems learning how to take bumps, but I felt she was actually making some semblance of a step forward.
I agree.
And I'd like to see, if at all possible, I don't see this one happening, I'd like to see Nate come back and keep working because we needed that big guy heel too. That I don't see that one happening just because of everything else that's out in the open now. So
I wanted to so body slam his ass. I really did. I was crying for it.
It would have been nice to see him get slammed or some kind of suplex. And I was trying to work with him kind of off camera. Like I was trying to help him work on his punches. I told him that if he wanted to work on his bumping ability, taking his back bumps, because that was one thing he had trouble with, is just put some cushions down on the floor and just fall back on them and keep your head tucked. Fall onto your mattress from a standing position, something. Just it.
That's the best way to learn.
Yeah,
That's
get you more comfortable.
That's the best way to learn. When me and my brother was wrestling when we were kids, we would wrestle on the ground in the living room. We would put mattresses or cushions there. So we would actually learn how to take our bumps already. So by the time that I got into training in professional wrestling,
yeah,
my trainer looked at me and was like, "Are you sure you've never done this before?" I'm like, "No." He's like,
"You could fool me."
You could have fooled me, yeah. And I'm just like, I'm like, I've been doing this since a kid, and I did backyard wrestling. And he's like, "Oh, well, we're good. I understand it."
Okay. Cold.
But
sorry, I'm here in formerly known as the McMichaels Manor. Gotta kind of have some fun with that. You got Jim Cornette calls his house Castle Cornette, all this stuff. So I've got somebody else that's off camera, and I've got a little space heater going in the room that I'm in. So my room's nice and warm here compared to the rest of the house.
Well, if you have the one thing I'll ask you this is that and you in your match with Xavier, and that we had to lose the name and everything like that. Do you think in your heart he got lucky in that match?
I do. I think he got lucky because when I bounced my face off the mat with that famouser that he gave me, I had my bell rung quite a bit because I was not able to try to protect myself fully to keep myself from taking a decent bump, and I face planted. And then he's got Courtney. He's got Courtney on the other side of the ring. He always had Courtney or JB. He always had somebody to distract the ref. So I mean, one of these days the body stars are going to be taken care of so that you can get a fair match. And I'm hoping that it's with me and somebody takes care of the body stars to where I can get him one-on-one with no interference. And if he can make me tap out or he can beat me clean 1, 2, 3, then we'll go with that one. But
see, I would actually, someone like you, and this is all respect to you, because I would actually say this. I would get into a ring with someone like you because I love doing the technical submission.
Oh yeah,
and brawling style type of thing. And for me, it would be fun because I'm like, okay, this would be. I've always done better against smaller guys. I don't know what it is. I've always wrestled better with smaller guys, only because they are also able to take care of you at the same time. So
yeah. I see in the comments here on StreamYard, JB says, "I hope Superstar sees this." I hope he does too, because all I can say is bring it. I'm ready for another one. I'm ready. You took the name. You can't take anything more. The only thing I can do is I can try to take your money. But
well, like I said, the one people want to know what my thing is with the body stars is like, yeah, they did give me the shirt. Yeah, they did offer me the security job and stuff like that. But it hasn't gone through the wrestling part of it. It's just, a lot of people, I will say there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of girls who've been hooting and hollering for Superstar. So you have to watch after him sometimes, because he's almost like another Tommy Lee. You have to watch.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that one.
You have to watch him a little bit.
He definitely has the Tommy Lee or Nikki Sixx, Bret Michaels kind of look going to him for that one.
And JB, though, it's pretty easy watching him. All you got to do is give him some weed. He's good. Watching him is fine. But
I could bring JB a quarter ounce and he'd be happy as hell and he'd sit back and he'd just, you're on your own, Superstar.
I'll be honest with you. I think this would be better for you. This is beneficial. This is the Booker side of me coming out. This is not the security side with the body stars, but this is just me, Kev here. Maybe if you do come back with them, maybe you should join the Outliers. I'm just saying. Have the 3-on-3 there. I'm just saying.
I know. It's something that I've thought of it's essentially recruiting the outliers to team up with and put the professional side, because as characters go, Matt and I got some bad blood too. Him and I had a couple of good drag out matches, and we're 1-1 right now. He beat me in our first match, and the next one that we had, I took him out in the backyard and whooped him after he thought he could beat me. I mean, I got a little help from Wyatt, but in the end, I still got the 1, 2, 3, not him.
Well, this is not necessarily a challenge I'm about to say here, but I know that Matt wrote me an email about a month or two ago saying, well, how would you feel about you and Kate facing me and Mel? Let me just clarify something right now. Okay. I'm a really big, strong, fast, physical guy. If Matt thinks for 1 second that him and Kate would win that match,
honestly, if I was going to book that one, and this isn't trying to start shit with anybody, it's literally trying to look at it from a booking standpoint. If I'm going to book Big Kev and Mel to lose, it is going to be via countout.
Oh, yeah.
And the only reason for that would be because there's a brawl literally going on outside the ring and just people lose track. Or it's going to be one of those that breaks down to a no contest. There's going to be no clear-cut winner loser.
I don't mind doing that.
It sets up another future potential match, and you can still make everybody look strong even with a count out or a no contest.
I would book it like this. Like, say for example, I got Matt in the death clutch, which is, I showed you what the death clutch would be. It would be like that rear naked choke and everything.
Yeah, kind of like the coquina clutch, or just a rear naked.
So if I got Matt in that, say Matt tapped out or passed out, and the referee rang the bell, but I kept it on, and then all of a sudden they win, but then all of a sudden we win, but then they win because of disqualification because I wouldn't let it go. That is something that could
kind of like what was it? Was it 98 or 99 that Ken Shamrock did that to The Rock for the Intercontinental title?
Yeah.
He won the match, but the referee he ended up reversing his decision because after the match he wouldn't release the ankle lock. So yeah, I mean that could be something that could work too. Is they start off as the losers and you refuse to break the hold, so the referee says, you know what? No, I'm reversing my decision. And going from there,
I'd feel bad.
It still makes, and how you do it is you don't have Matt actually tap; you just have him pass out.
Right.
So, because it still makes Matt look strong from a booking standpoint because he didn't give up. He literally just he passed out. Once you pass out, it's kind of like the Austin situation from WrestleMania 13. Austin lost because he passed out. He didn't actually quit or give up. He just physically was unconscious, so he couldn't continue. So Ken Shamrock declared him the loser. That kind of a situation.
That is still one of my favorite matches of all time.
That is one of the best character development matches that has ever happened in WWE, because it was nowhere else have you ever seen a double turn, or at least I've never seen a double turn.
I've seen a double turn, but it was never like they did the double turn with the whole finger poke of doom with Hall and Nash joining the Wolfpack, and then that was cringy. But when you see the one with Austin and you see the one with Brett, it was perfect. And
Brett and Austin's was done magnificently. Mm-hmm. They couldn't. I think the only other one that is even kind of remotely comparable would have still involved Brett. It would have been Brett Shawn. And I don't even know if that was really a babyface heel turn, because it was like the anti-babyface, anti-heel, because that was when Shawn was DX. So he was meant to be kind of the bad guy, but he was doing the stuff that everybody really wanted to do too.
Right.
And Brett was pity party Brett at the time. So in the 90s, I would have said that Brett was probably one of the best heels in the business then too, because of because he took himself serious.
Oh, he did, absolutely.
And
one thing about
ironically, that's what a lot of people don't really do anymore in the rings or in the business. Is it's all about money, 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 money.
Another one of my favorite technical matches, and I don't know if you remember this match or not, is the day that they were celebrating. They were in Kansas City where Owen passed away.
Mm-hmm.
It was a WCW Nitro, and it was that technical match between Brett and Chris Benoit. And
I vaguely remember that one.
It was one of my favorites. Which leads me to this question: do you think it's fair that Chris Benoit is not getting, or that his son's not getting that recognition from any promotion because of his dad?
It is heartbreaking. Because of what his father did, the guy got dealt a shit hand.
Yeah.
And as it goes for the in-ring work, because his kid's got some good in-ring work too. I've seen some of his work. In-ring, Chris was one of the greatest to me, one of the best. What happened that night, I'm pretty much going to parrot Paul Heyman. 3 people died, but only one had the choice. I mean, pretty much everything that I just said there was a parroting of Paul Heyman, but I agree 110% with Paul's sentiment on that one. He couldn't have put it any better to me.
The only thing I will say about the Benoit murders, the only thing that makes no sense to me is when they got Chris Benoit's brain and they said it was a brain of an 88-year-old man. And I'm sort of thinking, if that's the case, then he wouldn't be able to do what he did in the ring. That's the only thing I find a little strange about it. And that's what I'll tell somebody. That's the only thing I find strange about this situation.
I mean, knowing what we do now about head injuries, though, at the same time, that's obviously why WWE took the chair shots to the face out, because he took a hell of a lot of chair shots to the head. I mean, there were the spots where he was doing the suicide dives, and he'd get met in the face with the chair. There's no way really to protect yourself from that one. That's one of the things that I love that Matt doesn't really let us do, is Matt doesn't let us do the chair shots to the head because of what they can do. I don't mind taking a chair shot to the back or to the stomach, or having my arm or leg trapped in there and having it stomped onto where it could possibly break that. Broken bones heal a hell of a lot of time than a brain injury. And you know what? I have to agree with JB on that one. It will be great to find out if they can ever do that, because I will be one of the first ones to go and have my brain scanned for that, because I've had so many concussions in my life that I'm scared that I might potentially have it. And the only way they're going to find out is if I'm dead.
Well, I've had playing football. I've had 2 concussions there. I got hit by a car when I was 13, which I got a concussion there, and I got a concussion twice in the ring. So I've had a few myself. And
a lot of people don't know this one, but most of 2021, I sustained a concussion pretty much at the end of 2020. And did not let myself take the time to actually heal up properly. So I spent probably a good 9 months trying to recover from a concussion with 2021. Because I'd start feeling better, and then I work around sheet metal for my 9-to-5 style job, and I'd bang my head off of a piece of equipment, and next thing you know, everything's blurred again. I should not have been driving. I should not have been operating a fork truck. A lot of the stuff that I did on my day-to-day, I did it through essentially autopilot. But, yeah, I spent most of that year. And people could see it. People could see that I was dealing with that, because they'd look at me and they'd go, well, we know you don't smoke, so why the fuck do your eyes look so cloudy and distant? Huh? What? Oh, this is why. And then they'd watch me wrestle, and they'd see me take the bumps, and they'd see me fall on my face, and they'd go, it can't be any better for you. No, it does not help.
No, and it does not. Yeah, it does not help at all. And I wish I could get some tests like that too, because it kind of makes you wonder, like, what concussions actually do to a person, and what the effects that they can linger.
And even if you watch like some of the videos, like for people, while we're talking about the head injury, CT and that stuff, other sports athletes and the people that have CTE, it comes from the hits that you don't expect. Like in WWE, we would expect a lot of them to come, the concussions and stuff to come from the chair shots, like the obvious. In football, it can be just your simple, just your crack block, put somebody down for a concussion for a week or two. And not these big plays where you see basically a Goldberg or Roman Reigns style spear and somebody's just folded up like an accordion. And they just get up and they wander off like nothing happened. But then you watch the guy who's on the other side of the field who got essentially blindside blocked, and he's walking away with his helmet off, holding the side of his head.
There is a former athlete, former football athlete, Junior Seau. When
I knew exactly where you were going with that one because I have read about the Junior Seau story.
And he has that. They said he had that, and he ended up committing suicide.
Yep, he ended up putting a bullet through his head, if I remember correctly.
So yeah, these things get pretty scary, and I'm sitting there telling this would, and I don't know if this, I don't know if JB can talk in the comments too about this too. But what really pisses me off with people make the comment when they say that wrestling is fake, and the reason why it bothers me is, yeah, everything's predetermined. Yeah, there's a storyline and stuff like that. But let me tell you guys, let me tell anybody that's never been into the ring before, take a couple of shots into the first.
Well, like Kate said, Kate said it perfectly in one of her interviews. If you think it's easy, go out there, take a bump, take a back bump, take a front bump, do a flip bump, take a bump from the top turnbuckle to the mat. Tell me if you're not feeling it for the next couple of days. Even if you're in athletic shape, if your body's not used to it, you're feeling it.
The worst thing that ever happened to me the first time that I
couldn't have said it better. JB just said in the comments, the bumps are real. Absolutely.
Yep. Take an ass bump. Exactly.
We are choreographed like stuntmen do for a movie. It's like that's my argument. People go, "Oh, wrestling's fake." Well, so is Hollywood. Are you going to stop watching your favorite like Mission Impossible movie because Tom Cruise is jumping a 15, 20-foot gap and you know that behind the scenes he's got a wire hook to his back so he doesn't fall and splat? Are you going to stop watching it? So why would you feel any differently about a wrestler? And with us, at least with the big name guys, even in their contracts, you don't work, you don't get paid. Thankfully, guys like JB, myself, Superstar, even Matt and Kate, I mean, we've got our ways to bring in money, but if we were to break a bone wrestling and we can't go do our 9-to-5 job, we got to worry about how we're going to feed our families.
JB here.
Some of them are, JB.
Yeah.
I've seen guys go out there and they fucking hammer each other down.
Well, there's one thing too, and it's one thing that you don't do in no in wrestling is when you have someone bent over, you do not take your forearm and close to the back of their neck because that will get a receipt. You will get a receipt from somebody if you do that. If someone did that to me, I would punch him in the face after that.
I mean, it's you. There was the shot that Braun gave Brock.
Yeah.
Braun, I mean, I think all of that was just kind of in the moment. Braun was going off of adrenaline. I don't think he legitimately meant to like knee Brock in the side of the head like he did and be stiff. But he got his receipts, and Braun has said that, yeah, I felt it. It dazed me. It knocked me for a loop because Brock gave him too stiff. As a former MMA fighter, Brock gave him 2 stiff shots. Let him know, calm the fuck down.
Man, the first time I did training in wrestling, it wasn't the ring that actually hurt me. Well, I will say this. I did the first time I trained was inside a boxing ring. I did boxing before, but they were training us in a boxing ring. And I got slammed. I felt like the balls went up my throat.
Yep.
That's the first thing. But the one thing that really got me hard was the ropes. The ropes gave me really severe rope rash. I was hurting.
If you come off the ropes wrong, I know that when I was training, I came off the ropes wrong and I was pissing blood for a couple of days because you come across it and you hit your kidneys if you come across wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's happened. I know I'm not the first person that's happened to. I know it in his first book. Mick talks about that happening to him when he trained. So,
Well, the one thing too, I remember we were talking this about. I think I had JB and Jay in my thing, and I remember you were in the comment section, and I asked him, "Hey, has anyone ever farted in the ring?"
I have.
And I was like, "Boom, he did it."
Guilty. I will admit I am the guy that in that video said straight up guilty. I even joked with Jay about it later that night with say Superstar off cameras. He said, when the hell did I? He asked me straight up, when the hell did I do that? I told him it was straight up. It was in our last match. Because when it was right after he hit me with that famouser. So when my face hits the ground, my ass releases gas. And that was just because for that split second, everything went just.
Hey, you know what? I think if a fart really does happen on the wrestling show, they should keep it on the show. Like they really, if it picks up on camera, keep it on there.
I just happened to get lucky. Mine was a silent one, so thank God.
At least you wasn't eating tuna and eggs, and milk can attach this. When I eat my big protein stuff.
Oh yeah, the protein powder, or eat one of the protein bars or something like that. It gives you some rancid ass gas, or at least it does. I know it does to me. So,
man, when I'm eating the tuna and I have like the tuna and the hard boiled eggs, and I'm sitting there after a couple hours, I just like fart and stuff like that. And Mel's like, "What the fuck did you eat? What did you die?" I'm like,
"Where's the gerbil at?"
Yep. And it's really bad too. That I mean, like, you know, and I think you guys agreed with me on the wrestling part of, you know, some people are like, "Yeah, wrestling's fake. It's just a bunch of guys in tights and blah blah blah." And I'm like, you guys really don't know what these men and women go through on a daily basis.
I'm gonna say the same thing that Matt and Kate have. You think it's fake or fake? Come get in the ring with us. Come on. I know if you've watched anything from the wrestling show on YouTube, or if you've seen anything from them on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and you know where they shoot, come on down. Get in the ring. We'll show you just how easy it is, and we'll show you just how painful it can be.
And that's true. Like if you guys, any of you get hurt, and that 9 to 5 job's gone, it's pretty much like, well, shit.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if they do, sir.
Well, I could be. Well, what he said. Okay, I think girls fart in their matches too. Well, I'll say this much: there was
wouldn't want to smell like queef.
There was a custom video we were doing one time, and it was Mel was doing, and someone had her in a move, and they ended up while they were squeezing her, she ended up farting. So it happens. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, it happens.
I mean, it's a natural body function. I mean, Cena's shit himself in a match.
Yep, I remember that story. CM Punk shit himself in a match.
Yeah, I can't remember. I don't remember what it was that was going on with Punk that he did it, but I want to say it was an overseas tour for Cena, and he was wrestling, I think, Scott Steiner.
Uh-huh.
And he was dealing with food poisoning or something like that, and stomach flu or something. And yeah, he thought he was going to throw up, so he was trying to get under the ring, and lo and behold, it didn't come out the end he expected it to. So,
I mean, well, when you see wrestling now, like as far as like any promotion, do you think another thing with wrestling is and this is something that Jay and I were talking about too, is there's really no big name stars anymore. There's really no big names that kind of build for the future for wrestling. Like, you know, the next 10, 15 years, will there be somebody that can come in there like a Hogan or a Ric Flair or an Austin or a Cena and kind of push this barrier?
It'd be nice to see somebody. I don't know if there is anybody that could do that one, fill that kind of a role at this point. Maybe Breaker, Braun.
I like
him. And I think he could if Scott Steiner will pull his head out of his ass and let WWE kind of use some of the name since he owns the rights to the Steiner name. Give WWE permission and let the kid actually use his legitimate last name because you know who he's related to. They've made no secret about that. Hell, his singlet even is reminiscent of 1980s Steiner Bros. For Christ's sake,
he has the Rick Steiner look, and
he's got the Rick Steiner face and the Scott Steiner body,
and he talks like Scott.
Yeah. That's pretty fucking cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I look at that and I see him. The only guy now, for right now, I see as a main star is Roman Reigns, and that's. But then again, you think with Roman Reigns, you know, how long until Hollywood starts calling him and being like, "Well, now we want Roman Reigns."
Yeah. I'm hoping that they don't do something like that because I thought he was kind of going to be entertaining with, like, a Rollins would still be entertaining, but I don't know if Rollins can fill that role. Oof. I don't know. I hope he doesn't go into Hollywood. I hope he finishes out his career doing wrestling and sticking with that. Nothing against The Rock or Cena because Cena cut it himself. He said flat out that if it wasn't for The Rock, he wouldn't be able to do what he's doing now because he thought Rock was turning his back on the fans and everything, and now that he's gone and done the Hollywood deal, he's realized, oh, this is different than what I thought, kind of thing. So he credits The Rock for being able to open doors that he wouldn't have been able to get into on his own.
Well, you know, Roman Reigns did get his first dibs at being in acting. He was in the Hobbs and Shaw movie with The Rock.
See, I never saw that one. I'm not a big Fast and Furious guy. Nothing against the actors and actresses of that series. It's just I'm not a big car movie guy. So,
well, he was in one of the Samoan family members of Hobbs in the movie. So you see him for like a little brief, like
a cameo kind of thing.
Yeah, toward the end, yeah.
I agree with JB's latest statement there. They fell off. I've seen the very first one, and that's the only one I cared to see.
That one right there, and I've seen the street racing world because I got friends who are street racers, and that one is the most realistic of the street racing world. Is the first one, and after that, it's pretty much like they got a tank in here now. Not like in the last Fast movie we saw with John Cena in there. Spoiler alert for people who hadn't seen it, but they go to space.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so that's pretty much where we're at on that. They go to space on that one. So, yeah, so we're kind of fucked up on that part. But yeah, when I'm looking at wrestlers now, 10, 15 years from now, I don't see Punk there because Punk definitely won't be wrestling.
Punk won't be wrestling 10, 15 years from now.
MJF
might still be. I don't know where he'll be at that point.
If you were handling MJF, if you was his agent and you knew his contract was about to end with AEW, would you have him re-sign or go with WWE?
I'd have him stay. I'd have him stay with AEW because I feel he'd just get lost in the shuffle in WWE. Same with Wardlow, since they're finally pulling the trigger on that feud. Out of people that are in AEW now, anybody that's going to go back to WWE, I'd probably only take FTR. Maybe. And that would only be if they're actually going to still use them as a tag team and actually use them right. Because unfortunately, AEW is not really doing a whole hell of a lot with FTR. It's one of the better tag teams that they've got. And you keep seeing Lucha You keep seeing Luchasaurus, who I can't stand, who couldn't hack it in WWE. Jungle Boy, I think, actually could probably become the face of AEW on the face side of it, the baby face side. More so now with that they actually kind of fired Marco Stunt, that little fucking retard midget. Pardon my language.
Oh, let's go. You're good.
Not because of the F word, but because of the R word in there. I apologize to anybody who is offended by the word retard. That was an inhumane or insensitive thing of me to say, because I have family that has Down syndrome. And the girl that I'm dating, her son is possibly autistic. She's got to get him tested. So that was insensitive of me. As it goes to get back on that, yes, I see in the comments again. Technically, JB, I see in the comments for that one. It's not so much they let him go. His contract expired, and I think that's one of the greatest things that happened, because I cannot stand Marco Stunt. To me, watching Marco Stunt wrestle would be like watching Aiden wrestle against you, Kev. It literally, there's no way. Nothing, unless, I mean, he's running at you full speed and hitting you with everything he got, like full body every time.
Right.
It's not going to do any kind of damage. And that was how Marco Stunt was. The guy was like 75 pounds soaking wet. And he was fodder material, essentially. He was like Spike going against guys like Rhino, or when Spike wrestled against Undertaker or Big Show or Kane. He was there just to get the shit kicked out of him.
See, actually, one thing I don't like that AEW does either is that they, like, I mean, I know that Cody and Brandy are not on there right now, but when I saw that they were paying Brandy Rose $2 million a year for her contract, and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, Becky Lynch only makes like $800,000 for WWE,
Yep.
maybe 700,
something like 750 or 800,000, and
and then
it is irritating that when I found when people started releasing like terms of contracts, and you see that that's how much that Brandy's making to not even to wrestle. She's like hardly ever on. She was hardly ever on camera. It seemed too.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no reason, unless she's actually doing something in the production and helping run the business to where she legitimately earns that $2 million. There's no reason why she needed to be making that much.
I feel like he overpaid a lot of the wrestlers on there.
I think that's part of Tony Khan's problem at first too, with some of the guys that he first signed. Yeah, he basically did the WCW. He lured them away with big money contracts, and now he's got them locked into these contracts, so he kind of can't. He's stuck paying them what they're not really earning. Like I don't even think the Young Bucks are making $2 million a year. They might be making a little bit more, but at least they're wrestling. As much as I hate those two, at least Nick and Matt Jackson are out there wrestling on a regular basis to earn their paycheck.
I'm looking at his chart right now. He's making both Matt and Jay, both the Young Bucks are making $3 million a year.
Okay, and that makes sense. They're out there, as much as they're pushed to the moon, they're out there earning it. They're out there wrestling.
Britt Baker's making $2 million a year.
And she's underutilized on AEW television to be making that much too, because I've seen her, I think, more with anything like things NWA and Impact versus AEW. But
those pieces of shits, they are better than the Hardy Boys. No.
You know, that's and unfortunately they do think that, and I was really glad when I saw Jeff debut and they used the old WWE entrance music. I thought that was phenomenal and badass. I was happy with that. And I happen to agree with I definitely agree with JB's statement there. They think they're better than the Hardys. But there's a reason why I agree with how Jim Cornette calls them. He calls them the Young Cucks and the Hardly Boys. Because he cannot stand those two diaper-wearing pieces of shit, too. And unfortunately, I think they exercised, when they had that executive vice president power, I think they pulled a little bit too much creative control on themselves, and they were refusing to put other people over, because there's definitely no reason why FTR should lose to them the way they have, or even Jungle Express shouldn't have lost as much as they have to them. The Young Bucks are the same flip-flopping bullshit all over the place and a 450 tombstone and kick out of every finisher under the sun.
I have to tell you, I got to tell you this story, Mike, because this fits in with AEW and all that. I used to do this wrestling, the wrestling 2K games. I used to co-run this eFed with another company, with another guys, and all they do on their match was they would do for like 20, 30-minute matches of them with non-falls, kick out, kick out, kick out, kick out, kick out, kick out. And everybody would be saying it was a great match, and I'm sitting there like, you guys fucking ruined the finishers.
Yeah.
At that point, it's done.
And unfortunately, that is some stuff that I've seen. Again, no disrespect intended if Matt and Kate do see this one. That is some of the things that I've seen them do that actually have kind of, as a fan, driven me a little crazy. I know one spot they did was there was I don't remember what match it was. I think it was the Iron Man match. Kate kicked out of a Styles Clash, or one of them kicked out of a Styles Clash. That should have been a fall. Because, I mean, if you fuck that move up, you've got a broken neck.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's one. Either that or just don't go for that move. To me, that's why I've only been in a position like that where there's a real big risk at my head like that one time in my career for ring time. Yeah. And that was actually when I got pile driven by Superstar. I believe that was in the Rumble. That was the first, and I've trusted that he would take care of me, and he did. And we did like the stump puller style pile driver like Mccool used to do, was Cactus Jack. So because he didn't trust himself to hold me up, stall out, and then jump like Jerry Lawler used to do. And I wouldn't have wanted that one to happen either, because I would have been too scared that I would have ended up like Steve Austin. I trust Jay with my life in the ring, and if we were going to do another spot like that, I'd let him do it again. No questions asked. You're a bigger guy too, so I could even trust you to be able to do it.
I'd be able to do the tombstone easily with you guys.
I believe it.
That the one thing too with wrestling, and I feel like Stone Cold said it best on his podcast once, that these wrestlers are trying to go 1,000,000 miles an hour on WWE and like pretty much every promotion I see now. They're going 1,000,000 miles an hour instead of slowing down and telling the story.
I think part of that though now is because of the fan base, because unfortunately, everybody's being diagnosed as some form of ADD or ADHD. So it's like, oh, well, we got to keep their attention the best way possible. How do we do that? High spot, high spot, high spot. Make this guy do 10 flips in a row and everything. Nine. And I think that's what's going through promoters and bookers' heads now is, how are we going to keep their attention the longest? It's not how are we going to tell the best story. It's how can we keep the fans tuning in and tuned in.
The great thing I used to love about wrestling back then, especially with Rock and Austin's feud, is when they would do something on Raw with each other, or they did something at another pay-per-view that wasn't WrestleMania, like when The Rock did the rock bottom to Austin in Survivor Series, Austin didn't kick out.
Yeah.
And it's vice versa. But then when they got to WrestleMania, they're like, Okay, we're going to kick out a few times.
It's kind of like Taker and Shawn from WrestleMania 25 and 26. Look at how there are so many false finishes there, from tombstones and sweet chin musics. But in that instance, especially with WrestleMania 26, it was making perfect sense for all the false finishes to happen, because it was helping build up the story, because it was the streak versus Shawn's career. Shawn was going to have to pull out all the stops, and Taker was going to have to do it constantly to try to keep Shawn down, to keep the streak alive.
It kind of makes sense with Undertaker at WrestleMania too, because anytime he did the streak and they got really close, those near falls, you're like, they wanted that excitement, like, oh my God, Undertaker almost got beat.
Mm-hmm.
Almost got beat. Now, Paul Heyman's come out. I don't know if you've seen the interview on Inside the Ropes, but Paul Heyman did a what if. I don't know if he was playing with the crowd or not, but Paul Heyman's great at doing this. He said, here's a conspiracy for you. What if Undertaker was supposed to win that match, but Brock said, fuck this. I'm going to win anyways.
I mean, Paul makes a good point for that one. I mean, if Brock really wanted the Undertaker to stay down and beat the Undertaker to where he can't get back up, Brock could have done it.
I mean, he did get a concussion during the match. I mean, I don't know if that was...
Exactly. And who knows when that happened in that match, too.
Mm-hmm. Taker doesn't even remember. And that's the bad thing, too. And it's like he doesn't remember when it happened, how it happened. He just remembered that he woke up in a hospital room and his wife's asking him, what's your name? And
let's not even go into that travesty of a woman.
She did not. And
I saw a video on TikTok of people doing that whole react, like, sing if you see a better wrestler than Charlotte or so and so.
Oh my God, I've seen those. Yeah.
One of the pictures that somebody comes up is Michelle. It's like the very first one was Michelle Mccool, and I'm looking at it like instantly, like, I'm not singing. The only reason this woman got obviously I wasn't going to sing anyway for any of them, but that's because I suck at singing. But I'd recognize which ones were talented and deserved to have that spot. And the only two on the last one that I saw that I didn't think deserved it were Rhonda and Michelle Mccool. Michelle Mccool, if she wouldn't have started sleeping with The Undertaker, she wouldn't have gotten the push she did. No questions asked. She'd have been lost in the shuffle on the women's side of the roster.
This is true.
But because they had women on that list that were Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Asuka, Alexa, who, I mean, I would have begrudgingly sang, because I do think Charlotte, given the character flaws of her dad aside, I don't think she's bad in the ring.
No.
She's not horrible. She's arrogant beyond all belief, and I don't know if that's character or if that's just because of her father, but she's not horrible in the ring. She is very athletic.
I feel like WWE pushes her to the moon because of who her father is.
I think that's part of the problem too that people have with Charlotte Flair in this day and this point in time is we're tired of the pushing. She'll have an injury, she'll come back, she'll get pushed for the next 8 months solid over everybody. Everybody else gets overshadowed. And it's not fair to the rest of your roster or your people to do that one. I can understand if you're trying to make that person the new face of that side of the roster or that part of the roster.
Right.
Completely understandable. But if it's not designed to be that way in the long run, don't push this person at every taping and pay-per-view as the dominant one. Put them in a tag team match. Put them in a battle royal or something like that. I mean, you can still make them look strong without pushing them solely to the moon and back.
I'm still trying to figure out why WWE doesn't push Shayna Baszler, but that's just me. I mean, I'm looking at it like
it would be nice to. I mean, if they're going to push Ronda Rousey to winning the one of the women's titles, they literally should, or even if she doesn't win it, what they should do is they should put Shayna, who's a real life outside of the ring, friend with not Becky, with Rhonda, and because they knew each other in UFC and MMA. So I mean, they've got history leading up to that. Not too many people saw this, but if you watch the Royal Rumble, when they show Shayna Baszler, if you get to see her face, I can't remember if you do or not. When Ronda Rousey's music hits, she essentially kind of breaks character and she starts smiling. She goes from looking like the hard ass to like, yes, my friend's here.
I've always wanted that story right there in itself. If Ronda does beat Charlotte at WrestleMania for the belt, I would so book Shayna versus Ronda.
Exactly. Yep.
I would do it.
I knew it, but I didn't want to interrupt you, but I knew exactly where you were going with that one because that was the exact same thought process I had. Is you could even try to bring back a gimmick match of like an ultimate submission or a submission only match. No pins, no countouts, whatever, or submissions count anywhere. You could bring something like that back to keep their feud or get their feud going and have that as their blow-off match kind of thing.
And I would do something where I would book Shayna strong. Like I would actually have like on a SmackDown where she attacks Ronda from behind and chokes her out.
Yep. Either you can have it go back and forth like that, but then when it comes push to shove and you pull the trigger and you're finally going to take the belt off of Ronda, you put it on Shayna. You have Shayna beat Ronda. And if it's a submission style match, you have her choke her out. No questions asked. If it's because you're going to have her get pinned, if you don't want to do a clean finish for that one, you want to have interference happen or a distraction from somebody like Charlotte or Becky, and that's how Shayna gets the pin. Fine. I don't like it. I've never really cared too much for those angles. But unless the storyline is perfectly calling for it.
Here's how I would book it. If I was writing for WWE right now, and WWE, you should probably hire people like me and Mike and a couple guys to write for you. But I would book it.
Honestly, I would love. I know Superstar has talked. Him and I have talked. I don't know if he wants this one being really out there, so I am sorry from the bottom of my heart, Jay, on this one. But him and I have both talked about wanting to possibly do something on the indie circuit in Wisconsin. I would love to help write and book a show with him.
He's talked to me about that, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I would love to sit down and help like co-book a show for that one and help, or even not even just a show, but like a series of shows just to tell the stories, because I think it would be a fun, amazing thing to do. So,
hell, I told Jay this, and I'll tell you this. If he was doing an indie show and it was you guys doing an indie show in Wisconsin, Mel has family in Wisconsin. I would go all the way to Wisconsin and I would special referee y'all's match.
See, that would be awesome.
I would actually do something like that because that would be like a cool thing, because I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to be the regular referee, so you can't get physical with me because I'll get physical back with one of you.
Yeah.
That would be that kind of deal. But what I was saying about with the whole Rhonda and Shayna is I would book it to where Shayna's happy for her.
Yep.
But then I would book it to where Shayna's like, look, you know what? You left me high and dry.
Happy, and then it slowly turns into like contempt and jealousy.
Right. I would have been big if it wouldn't have been for you. And I think that would have been perfect there for them. As a matter of fact,
I know they haven't really done shit with her since they let go of Nia.
Yeah, and I don't know if they. I know the rumor is WrestleMania 39 is supposed to be Becky and Rhonda, but if you're not going to do, I think it's SummerSlam would be perfect for Rhonda and Shayna.
Yep.
And
that would be the perfect time for them to pull a trigger on that kind of a match.
And WWE is very lucky to have Brock and Rhonda back right now, because you really need all the help you can get with what's going on.
Yeah, it's baffling me though how many people they're letting go, how much of their talent they're letting go, and
I like Karrion Kross. I loved Karrion Kross in NXT.
Oh yeah, Scarlett and Cross were really good workers, and At least on the managerial side for Scarlett, more so than the in-ring work, because I didn't really see too much of her in-ring. But she was a spot on. She was perfect for her as a manager or valet, whatever. We said this one earlier. They underutilized Keith Lee. They could have had Keith Lee when they brought him back, when he came back from, I think, injury. They could have made him the monster heel that they needed.
Instead of that one big giant that they had with AJ Styles, who shouldn't be on part.
Almost.
Yeah, he's not ready. And you
no, he's not. He's right now. He's better, and I think they're not. I don't even think they're keeping him heel. I think they're turning him face. I think they're making him a baby face.
Now, the one thing they have done here recently that I'm kind of curious about is that they turned Damian Priest heel to face Finn Balor at WrestleMania for the U.S. title.
I'm really high. There's one, actually, I think that could carry us into the next 10, 15 years.
Damian Priest?
Damian Priest. Yeah. I've got a really, this is going to sound horrible, and I know JB's going to laugh, but I pretty much got a hard on for Damian Priest. I think he's a really fucking good in-ring worker.
No, I agree.
I mean, I don't particularly care that they did the shit with Bad Bunny, because when you have people that come in that have no business in the industry like that, like you had Bad Bunny,
Logan
Paul. I mean, they've done it with multiple people. I mean, except for the funny thing is, David Arquette actually went and trained, and he's actually done indie circuit wrestling lately.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
So, I mean, I'll give him credit. At least he at least understands the business a little better than some of these other ones. Like Stephen Amell had to do it for one of his shows that he was in, but before that, he was only known as the dude from Arrow. And then they got him in the ring with freaking Neville.
And he
to wrestle, I think it was Bad News Barrett and Cody as Stardust.
The one thing I do like, the one thing about celebrities being used is, and I know that Jay is not a fan of that.
I'm not overly a fan of it either.
If you're gonna do it right, like when you see WrestleMania 1 and you're Vince McMahon and you're putting all your money in to that show, and this could either be a make or break situation. Yeah, I understand having Muhammad Ali as a referee. I understand bringing Mr. T in,
or even WrestleMania 14, where Mike Tyson was the enforcer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he wasn't wrestling, but he basically did that WrestleMania 1 spot that Muhammad Ali did.
Yeah.
But that at the time, for those two, it worked, because in their respective days when that happened, those two were two of the biggest names in their respective sports.
Now, I will give some football players some credit. I do know that when Lawrence Taylor faced Bam Bam Bigelow, Lawrence Taylor actually went to a wrestling school in New York to prepare himself.
And I didn't know that. If that's the truth, then yeah, I've got a little bit more respect for LT on that one. I know. I think it was Reggie White wrestled a match in WCW.
Yeah,
and that, from what I understand, that was abysmal.
Then there's Kevin Green, who came around a few times.
Yep, Kevin Green came around a few times. I think he wrestled with Mongo a couple times, or against him, one of the two. Mongo's another one that not a big fan of his in-ring work, but he at least made the transition from pro football to pro wrestling and tried. I think he was more of like a muscle than an actual wrestler, kind of like a Wardlow.
I felt like McMichaels was great on the broadcasting booth when they had him on the
broadcast. He was better. He was better as a broadcaster than he was as a wrestler, to me.
But let me ask, do you think? What do you think women's wrestling? Do you think women's wrestling would be carrying wrestling in 15 years, or do you think that would die down as well eventually?
I think women's wrestling could. I think there's a very strong possibility that it can be to continue if people, because there's a lot of young gals and young women that look up to some of these ladies, like your Sasha Bankses, your Bianca Belairs, and even some of your lesser known ones, like your Tara. Well, Tara's not a lesser known, but some of your AEW gals, like the only one that comes to mind right out of you've got Bunny, I think it is. You've got Chris Statlander, Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa.
There's Paige Van Zant on I think AEW as well.
I know. There's a lot of people. Like my daughter thinks Thunder Rosa is amazing. She loves Thunder. She loves Rosa. She loves the way she does the makeup. She loves the look. I've got another friend that watches kind of casually that is trans. So that person has a really, really big spot for Nyla Rose because Nyla's a transgender wrestler. So there's people that it's not just. I hope she does. I honestly hope she does, JB.
Me too. Yeah, I agree with
Don't get me wrong. Nothing against Britt Baker, but I think she can, and I hope she does just because I think that'll do a lot for Thunder Rosa's career.
I think another person to watch out for possibly being a part of AEW is I know that Paige got that neck injury, but she's been really training, and her doctor told her, I think her doctor gave her clearance, but WWE has not cleared her. And I know her contract ends in June, and I'm sitting there thinking, if I'm Paige and I want to wrestle again, WWE's not going to allow me to do that. That would be a big signing for AEW.
It would be, especially for their women's division, their women's side of it. Yeah, she's still young. She's late 20s?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe early 30s at this point. I think because she started when she was 21 with WWE.
Yeah, and she was wrestling with her family when she was 14. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So I mean, she's been around the block in more ways than one. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. If anybody's ever heard of that video, for your viewers out there, I don't know if kids are going to see this, so I'm not going to tell you where you can find that video.
No.
Oh, but you adults can look it up anywhere.
I guarantee you, Superstar's got a copy somewhere.
Yeah, I could see that one possibly happening. I could see her going to AEW. Because they're more about the wrestling now than the looks. I feel that WWE, you have to have a certain look more so than anything else. And this is going to sound really shallow of me, but after all the work that Paige has had done, all the Botox and everything, the lip injections, I think one of those jobs might have been a botch.
She was a lot better looking back then.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of it has to stem from self-image issues too. So I mean, I respect that that's what she chose to do because now she's happy with how she looks. So I don't want to sit here and sound like the asshole chauvinist saying, nope, shouldn't have done it because now we think you're ugly. Nope, if you did it because you weren't happy with how you look, that's the only person that fucking matters.
The last subjects I'll ask you on this one is what is your take on intergender wrestling, and do you think it has a place with AEW or WWE? I know Impact does it quite a bit. They did it with Tessa Blanchard and Sami Callihan.
Yep. Oh, and that was they told an excellent story with that match too. I don't disagree with it if the story is set up properly. Let's see if we'll do this one. If the story is perfect, as long as it's not like Keith Lee versus somebody, like as long as it's not too disproportionate for potential weights. It's because a lot of stuff. I'm going to kind of break some of the unwritten rules here. WWE, I don't know if AEW does it. I know WWE used to embellish weights and heights. And they did that on all of their talent. Some of their talent they'd say they weighed less. Some they'd say were taller and weighed more. And it's because of the fan base being targeted. They'd say the women weighed less because they wanted it to give the illusion that these women were smaller, and just they were used as basically peddling for just TNA. And I'm not talking about TNA Impact. I'm talking about TNA Vince Russo. And then you had guys in the 80s and 90s that were given 3-4 inches. Yeah, hell, even Triple H. Triple H isn't the height that he actually is. They'd say he's like 6'4", 6'5", 280, 285 pounds, when in reality he's like 6'1", 6'2", 230, 240 pounds. I mean, yeah, I know over the course of your career having surgeries, you can lose weight, but you don't lose size, but you don't lose that much.
I know that,
especially like Taker and Hogan. Hogan used to be billed at 6'8".
I know Hogan shrunk after having the hip and knee replacement a little bit.
That's true. He did, but they used to be, when he first got booked, he would get booked or billed in at 6'8", 330 pounds. Well, now he's like 6'2", so there's no way he lost 6 inches in his spine even after all those surgeries. I could see you losing maybe 2-3 inches as you got older and your body starts to shrink. But
I think in his book, one of his books I have, he said he was actually legit 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah. See, that is understandable and reasonable. Especially if he's like 6'2", 6'3" now, because of the back surgeries. But yeah, getting back to the point, if the match is booked properly, the weight proportions are perfect for it, so that everything looks legitimate. And if you've got the right idea, like I guess it goes with the story, you've got the right match to do it, the right people. If you just threw 2 random people, 1 random woman and a guy into a match and said, go have fun, with no build-up, it's going to be hard pressed. But if you can sell that story to build up to that match like Sammy and Tessa did, perfect.
You mean like how WWE did back then when he would have, I remember back in 2002 or 3, Stephanie was a general manager and Vince would have her face like Big Show and Albert.
Yep.
I'm like, that made no sense whatsoever. And
I know one of the matches that Stephanie was in was actually part of a storyline, and it was with Zach Gowen, with the Zach Gowen angle. Because she was pushing for Zach Gowen to have a contract and everything, and Vince was like, no, no, no. So she stuck Zach and Stephanie into a match with the Big Show, and that was when Brock was doing his original run, and he became a babyface, and he came out there and hit the Big Show with an F5, and I think Kurt Angle hit Big Show with an Olympic Slam. And then Zach Gowen hit him with a moonsault, and that was one of the best moonsaults to date still I've ever seen, because the kid had perfect hang time and a great rotation. It's scary that a one-legged guy did a better moonsault than a two-legged man can.
Yeah.
Especially at his size. I mean, well, not his size, but it does give some of the newcomers a chance to shine too, JB. You're right. But when you just throw them into it with no purpose other than just to throw them on the card, it doesn't really help them. All it does is it's just, here, this is what we've got, kind of thing.
So I'll ask you this one last question, because I know we've been on here for 2 hours now.
Yep.
But we want to make sure that we save all this stuff for when we start doing stuff with Jay and I gotta do it.
I know that one's gonna probably be a long show.
And I know that I know I have to do an actual interview with you eventually, because it has to be more about your wrestling and I know you have an MMA background too, so we will decide that. But if you had a choice, a wrestler from the past and present, man and a woman, who would you have matches with?
Male and female, who would I want to get in the ring with? I'd see on the male side of it, there's way too many that I would love to. Number one would probably have to be in his prime, Jake Roberts, just because he's one of the ones who really helped me want to get into the business because of his ring psychology. He's actually the reason why I started getting into loving reptiles and snakes, and he's why I own a few now. Because I wanted one in the worst way, because I thought it was so badass to watch him just kind of drop the snake on people after beating them. I thought the DDT at the time, when he did it, I thought it was just one of the most devastating things I'd ever seen. And they protected the hell out of that finisher for him, too. Mm-hmm. Over the course of time, unfortunately, it just turned into a staple of everybody, so it's kind of broken my heart for that one. Now everybody and their brother does a DDT. Followed probably by Prime Ricky Steamboat as my number 2 option for guys. Number 3 would be Owen. And that's not even necessarily in any one specific order, I guess, except for Jake being number 1. But I feel that Owen would teach me a lot in the ring too, on a personal level. On the women's side of it, I don't know. I probably, if I'm not scared of being manhandled, I would say okie dokie, bring me China, bring me Joni. I'd let her press slam me, and then I'd say, thanks, mommy. I know Sensational Sherry used to have some really good in-ring work, as did Moolah and Mae Young in their respective eras.
I think for me, one name comes to mind. I would love in his prime, especially, I'm not talking about his WWE prime, I'm talking about his TNA run. I would have loved to get in the ring with Kurt Angle. That right there would have been a fun thing.
I feel that the end of his first WWE run, the start of his TNA run, was some of his best work. Mm-hmm. Before he got addicted and hooked on the fucking Percocet and everything else. After he got onto the pain pills and he started getting addicted to all that, he kind of started falling off.
I would have loved to get in the ring with Taker because I would have had that honor, and plus I would have allowed Taker to tombstone me at that point. But
I'd take that bump anytime.
If I was to get into a hardcore fight, I would love to fight Foley or Terry Funk. In that Pacific hardcore match, I would love to have a face down. But as far as women goes,
hell, even a match with Terry, like if it's a hardcore match, yeah, either Mick or Terry. Just as long as Terry Funk leaves the branding iron alone. He brings that in. We are no longer having a wrestling match. We are now having a shoot fight because I'm not getting that shit done to me.
Can you imagine Terry Funk fighting Matt Jones and all of a sudden him bringing that branding iron and hitting Matt with it?
I'll be honest. I think Matt would scream like a little bitch. But I can't think of anybody that wouldn't scream like a little bitch.
But he would do it. But he would do it for the views. You know, he would do it for the views.
Oh yeah, Matt would definitely do it for the views. Or I think even Terry would let him do it to him for the views. Terry's just that freaking crazy, or was that freaking crazy.
I think the reason I'm gonna pick for 2 women, I would have loved to get in the ring with Chyna because me being a bigger guy, I know I can have a fun time with Chyna.
And since she was on par kind of with how the men were, you wouldn't feel like she's so fragile.
And this is going to be a shock to people, but I would have loved to gotten in the ring with Victoria and Tara. I think
that'd be a good one.
I think she would have been fun to do, and just because I want to know how badass she really is, I would have liked to get in the ring with Ronda Rousey, just because of how badass. Could she really throw people like that? But, because I see how her husband is. Her husband's a big guy like me.
Yeah.
So and I see her doing judo throws of him. So It makes me kind of think like, damn, that would have been. But as far as the guys go, besides Kurt Angle,
I'd let Awesome Kong give me her finish, her slam, because
another.
I could trust her. She was a gal that in TNA and WWE would get underutilized far too much just because of her size, especially WWE.
And I would
Well,
have loved to get. I don't know. This is going to be
we'll save
crazy.
that one for another day.
We saw the Royal Rumble TikTok thing, but yeah, I would love to get in the ring with Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
I mean, because I know that I would have been giving Brock all my best.
I would have probably been folded up like a pancake. It would have been like looking at him wrestle Rey Mysterio when he'd give Rey Mysterio the F5. He just launched him up into the air and just launched him. That's probably what it would look like with me, because Rey has to be about what I weigh.
But, I actually want to thank you for coming on here, man. I know it's been...
I want to thank you for having me. I know we've been talking about trying to make this one happen for a while.
And I appreciate the guys in the comment section. JB basically got a kick out of the Percocet Kurt Angle.
I mean, he was a beast, though, in that. And I have to agree with JB's other comment. As a kid, I hated Angle. I think part of that was just because of how he was booked with the whole like abstinence and everything else. But yeah, the guy was phenomenal as an in-ring worker from pretty much day one.
Another guy I would have loved to get in the ring with was Big Papa Pump. Like Steiner, I think Bobby Lashley I would like to get in the ring with too. But
as long as they're not cutting any, well, Lashley, okay. As long as Scott's not cutting a promo first, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, especially if he takes a look at a picture of my wife and then says his shit. Yeah, it'll be on at that point.
Don't give him any fractions or percentages that he's got to figure out too. Steiner mathematics at its finest. Every time I hear it, I feel like I'm going to have a brain aneurysm.
But I mean, this is one last question too, because I have to throw this one out there because I forgot to ask Jay this, and when we do our thing, I'll ask Jay this question too.
Okay.
Is there one wrestler out there who was booked to the moon that you looked at and went like, "What the fuck, really?"
One wrestler that was out there that was booked to the moon, and it had me saying, "What the fuck?" Honestly, right now, I can't really think of anybody. God damn it, JB.
The mathematics. Yeah, there you
go. Yeah, I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head. And I'm trying to think of everybody from WWE to WCW to even AEW. Or NTNA, or Impact, whatever one it's called by now.
This may not have been a popular choice, I'm about to say, but I never saw dollar signs when I saw Braun Strowman.
Yeah, I can get behind that one. I mean, I see him as a gimmick guy. Oof.
Yeah,
I know one guy that I would have loved to have seen get pushed to the moon that they never did. And that's because the fans made him popular. I'm sorry. JB just about gave me an aneurysm too.
I see that.
Marco Stuntz in GCW. Well, I know what I'm not watching anymore, and I don't like Nick Gage either. So, ouch. But I would have loved to have seen the former Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, get pushed. I would have loved to have seen him when he did his whole internet title thing, and he ended up getting the U.S. belt from Dolph back then. I would have loved to have seen that one happen. I would have loved to have seen him get a little bit stronger of a push. Maybe not like a world title push.
Right.
But just a solid upper mid card push. Because he had the fans behind him. And the fans made him, and Vince hated it. So
Speaking of Zack Ryder, anytime his old theme song used to come on, me and Mel would sing it in the car. I mean, it was just catchy and shit. I'm like,
oh yeah, that the radio. I had the freaking headband that said broski and the shirt that said woo woo woo. I did a Halloween costume one year before I started shaving my head down this short. I spiked that shit all up, wore that headband. Everybody said I looked like the one dude from Jersey Shore though.
oh, the situation.
I don't freaking remember. This was like 2010, 2011. This was when he got that push. I did that. So
There's two wrestlers that came to mind for me that I also felt like that were unutilized. And we were talking about that real quick before we go. Is Scott Hall, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Angle.
oh hell yeah, yeah, hands down. I can fully get behind both of those. If those two were both solid workers, they made the Intercontinental title something. It would have been nice to see them at least get the world title once each. Even if you just do it just to see how well they could hold the belt, at least Razor. Scott Hall as Razor, I think definitely would have been able to hold that WWF World Heavyweight title for a little bit. And he fit in perfectly with that look at the time.
He was tall, big, but he was also very athletic. And that was something that I felt like in 98, if he would have stayed out of trouble with the drinking, maybe.
And the classless bullshit that WCW did by turning that into an angle.
Yes.
I still won't forgive them for that one because that's.
Oh, JB said Paulie D. from the
I don't think anybody. I don't think I will ever be able to forgive as a fan Eric Bischoff for making somebody's demons like that because they did the same thing with Hawk, with Road Warrior Hawk and around the same time when he came back and they had LOD 2000 and they had draws and that. They basically made it a gimmick about Hawk coming out to the ring and he'd be wasted on pills or something. And they made that part of the storyline. And I don't know if they did that to make fun of it or if it was a punishment to Hawk or what, but it was heartbreaking because those were two guys that I idolized growing up because they were from Chicago.
Yes.
So to see that happen and honestly, the one that I idolized more of the two was Hawk because he was the smaller of the two guys. Animal was the powerhouse and Hawk was the kind of the speedster of the team.
Well,
oh yeah, that voice didn't hurt the case at all either. But
before we go here, Mr. PK, what I have to ask you though is now that I think that Superstar, you've issued the challenge.
Yep, that challenge is there at the beginning of the video. Anytime you want to meet me in the ring again, Superstar, I'm down. Let's go.
So the next time that we do a big video, we're going to do a panel. I'm going to see what his answer will be on that panel.
I welcome to see that. I want to see that answer too.
We'll see what happens. And if you guys do wrestle in Wisconsin, Superstar, if you're listening, if you guys do an indie show in Wisconsin, let me be the referee of this match between you two.
I'm okay with that as long as you make sure you call it down the fucking middle.
I'd call it down the middle. At that point, it would just be me. It wouldn't be Big Kev. It would just be Kev.
Okay.
That's a different story. So that way we can have that match, and that would make sure that JB and Courtney don't interfere in that match and keep it clean between you two, and we'll finally get a chance to see you.
See who the better man is.
Now, there is something about Jay. Whenever you have a happy birthday, he likes to send you booty pictures. He did for me on my birthday. So
doesn't even have to be a birthday. He did it for Valentine's Day too.
Yeah, that takes a very straight man to show his butt. Like I have to admit that.
A very comfortable individual.
Well, I mean, in the comments section, when you guys see the videos later, please, if you guys watch back tell us in the comment section what you guys think of wrestling in the future. I believe, and honestly, I'm going to say this, and I didn't get a chance to say this part. I think in the next 15 years, I think that wrestling, because of the way the internet is and everything's going apps, and the cables being cut, I think it's going to be more like you're just going to have to download the wrestling on your app and watch the show on your phone.
Probably.
I think eventually that's what's going to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
If WWE doesn't change things in the next 15 years, I can actually see them going under.
Yeah. I could see that one too. I could see the McMahon legacy going down the hole. I don't know what the McMahon family thinks about that one, but if they don't change their views, that's a very good possibility.
I gotta stab some AEW fans on this one. By the way, guys, for all you guys that used to brag that AEW beat NXT in the ratings, NXT did beat them 11 times. But for you guys that are bragging about NXT, look at the guys you have on your roster now: Keith Lee, Aleister Black, Andrade, Kyle, Adam Cole. You know, you guys have like 7 or 8 guys from NXT on your roster now. So if NXT was really that bad,
why would these guys be people that were signed?
Exactly.
These were the guys that were in NXT that was beating AEW's roster, that are now a part of that roster that was managing to squeak by, because AEW or NXT used to be all about the wrestling before Vince kind of pushed Triple H out,
which was stupid.
Honestly, now I have to agree with JB.
But
I'd say it's superior now. I wouldn't, but I mean, at the same time, even comparing it to before this roster, once WWE started making cuts, it's I can't sound this without sounding completely insensitive, but it's like being the smartest kid with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
You've still got a mental disability, so it's at the risk of being canceled.
I do believe if WWE would allow Triple H to take over, events was to.
And unfortunately, they're not. It's going to be another Khan that takes over.
Right.
And I think the son of a bitch is related to the rest of them.
I think so too.
I seriously, I think it's Tony's brother. I think Nick Khan is Tony Khan's brother. But at the same time, if that is something that happens and they are related, who knows? That forbidden door might get completely busted open, and it goes back to kind of like the territory days. We have talent that kind of moves around at will when promoters want. So it could go either way. Well, only time is going to tell.
I was going to say that I feel like if Triple H was in charge,
I think if Triple H was in charge, that door would get busted open too, and Triple H would say, "Yeah, we'll let you borrow this so and so for X amount of weeks if we can borrow so and so for X amount of weeks."
I felt like Triple H was doing something great in NXT, and I felt like Vince got jealous.
I couldn't have said it any better.
And I felt like when Triple H had that heart, when he had
his heart problem,
yeah, they used that as a way to go like,
ping, yep.
Jay Bowski, oh, he's in the comment section. He said this is still alive?
Believe it or not, yes, it is.
Well, it's about to be dead before you came on here, but Jay.
Oh, I should have known he was going to say something like that.
Oh, boy. How does Mike feel that he gets sexually aroused whenever he wrestles Xavier Michaels?
Love you, sweetheart.
Now, Jay, you have to watch the beginning of the interview or beginning of the panel, because this man right here is challenging you again for a match. He came on here live and said it. I had nothing to do with it.
Yep.
But
just go ahead, watch the video. Next time we have a show and it's able to have all three of us, we'll get your answer.
he said Mike is a goddamn great wrestler, by the way.
Respect. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Jay.
Oh, I'm gonna tell Jay this.
Kayfabe aside here, this is not PK talking to Superstar. This is Mike talking to Jay. Nothing but love and respect, and I think you're a phenomenal wrestler also, man. I love getting to work with you in the ring. I can't wait to work with you again. I can't wait to work with Josh.
Okay. So I'm going to let Jay know this question. I'm going to let Jay know this. If you guys wrestle in Wisconsin, if that thing in Wisconsin ever happens, and it's not a part of the wrestling show, but it's an indie show in wrestling, I said that I would be the special referee for you two. I would do it just because of how good you both are. That is the reason why I would do it. And that's a props to you, Mike, and that's a props to Jay.
I'd like to see that. I'd definitely be on board with that. I'd help pay for the plane ticket or the gas to get your ass up here. Also, so that I could hang out with you and Mel.
But it had to be like it wouldn't be for the wrestling show. It would be for the other thing. But who knows? Maybe later down the road it might be. You never know.
Yeah.
That door is not forbiddenly closed. It's just a little.
Like we kind of talked about in the middle of the interview. I wasn't expecting to essentially bury the hatchet with Matt and be asked to come back to the show and welcomed back. So I mean, anything's possible, and I'm eternally grateful for all of it.
I got a wife over here passing gas while we're doing this live too, and it's just funny.
That's all right. I've got a dog down on the floor next to me doing it.
And those are worse.
Oh, yeah.
But we're going to get this panel going. I think the next panel we're going to do is, I know me and Jay talked about doing wrestler bios. That's something we were talking about doing. But I think another thing that we would want to do is maybe kind of rate some of the WrestleManias in the past. And
hell yeah. I would love to get in on that one. Right now, the only reason we're actually able to have this one is because I don't work for this week. I took this week off of work as vacation to kind of work through some personal stuff that I needed to. But yeah, definitely on a Friday or even a Saturday or Sunday night, I'd set it aside to be able to have that one and say, let's do this. It could be the two of us plus Jay, and if JB, I'd welcome JB getting into this too. So I think it'd be great.
So Jay just said, "This is awesome, Kev. But do you know how awkward it's going to be in the chat with you guys while I'm shaving my balls?"
Oh, I don't.
Oh, well, you know what Jay's nickname is for me? His nickname for me is the sexy monkey, the sexy man meat.
Sexy man meat?
I should have used that as a wrestling character, sexy man meat.
Yeah, he could.
Come to the ring.
I know if you do ever end up coming up this way and being on the show, Kev, I know, or you and Mel, I know I'm in the process of looking for some new ring gear, so if you wanted to wear MMA shorts, be my guest. I'm looking at some different tights and stuff. And what's that question, Jay?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm not doing the Hogan ear thing, but I'm still listening.
I'm just doing it too like that. Well, watch him send like a ball pitcher.
God, I hope not. He's got our friggin' numbers and everything, so he could very well possibly do that shit.
Hey, if you send a ball pitcher to me, don't be surprised if I send a picture of my ass to you. So yeah, fans, we are trying to go. We're just waiting for Jay's question here, and then we'll.
Yep. We're sorry if we're keeping anybody here from anything that they need to do importantly.
When you guys were training, what was the most important lesson you learned? If you want to go first, PK.
For me, the most important lesson that I took away from everything, ironically, I don't know if they're still watching the show, but I actually just got a message from Matt and Kate, and they thanked me for the professionalism, and that's what it was, that learning to properly bump and being professional about everything. And those were the biggest lessons that I had to learn, because when I started training, I was an arrogant, selfish prick who, yeah, I had to learn to humble myself. And that's where it kind of comes in with that professionalism. And there's times where even I've got to step back, and I know, Jay, you've helped me with that one. Because I've told you, it's like, shit, it's just, I'm not liking how this is going with something, and just you've helped put me back in my place. You helped me remember we've all got our part to play, which is another reason why I've got a lot of respect for you.
I think what I've learned from training is I learned a respect factor. I've learned to respect the guys, the men before me. I've learned that, if you protect your fellow brothers, they will protect you. I've learned to. That's one of the main things too, and also learning your footwork, because when I played football, I had to learn a little more about my footwork. Got that down because lucky for me, I actually knew dance back in the day too, so I was able to learn my footwork really good. I think it was just the timing part that I really, really learned a lot of, and watching tapes. I love being a student of the game, still watching tapes over and over, and just kind of thinking about the one thing I learned in training is that it's okay to slow it down, and it's okay that you're going to make mistakes, because I am a very bad perfectionist. I will admit that. If it's not great to me, I won't do it.
That's one of the things that I've got an issue with too, and I'm sure I've frustrated Matt with it, is the whole the continuity stuff too. So and that was one of those things where it's like I said, I've got to learn to be professional, and I've got to learn to humble myself. It's not my show. I can't run the show. But I got to go get the dog taken care of, so I do got to get out of here. You guys probably got shit to do too, Kev.
Yep. Yeah, Mel leaves in about 2 days, so yeah, I have to.
Yes, I remember you telling me about that.
I'll be home alone for 2 or 3 days.
That's never a bad thing.
No, it'll probably just be a boring day for me.
I do agree with Jay on that one also. Footwork and foot placement is definitely a key thing too.
And also a little key thing for anybody else out there: if you are ever in a wrestling training and you are right-handed, you have to learn to work on your left side. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the most important things. And if you're left-handed, you have to learn to work on your right. It's a little bit. I know some people look at that and it's like, that's complex, but
it's rough. Being a south, because I still throw my punches left-handed because Jay and I can work with that one. But yeah, if I have to, I can throw. I'll see. And when it comes to doing the right-handed stuff, I'll do like China used to do the elbow strikes or the forearms because I can't throw a convincing punch with my right hand. So, but obviously some form of MMA background, a little bit of training with that one. And being a southpaw, I can throw a decent left-handed punch.
I'm not a southpaw, but I'm strength on both hands. I have this condition where I can, when I play baseball, I can bat with my left and my right.
You're ambidextrous.
Yes. So I can do both sides. I can work both sides of the field, which really worked to my advantage back in wrestling back in the day.
Yeah. To be ambidextrous and be a wrestler is a great thing.
But before we go, I'm going to say just one thing to Nate, the effing great. If you're watching, Nate, one of these days, I'm going to meet you, and I am going to body slam you in that motherfucking ring. One of these days, it's going to happen. Because I'm getting right back in the gym, and once I start feeding my little anacondas here, shit's gone for you, man. And then I will take your head and I will give it to Jay as a present. So then Jay can decorate it all he wants. He can put makeup on him or whatever else he wants to do with him. But anyways, PK, Mike, man, seriously, I appreciate you taking the time now. I know we went a little longer than we were supposed to, and I've kind of got the eyeball there for a few times.
I'm sorry I know that there have been a couple times we got a little off topic and kind of just went off on tangents. So
it's okay.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I love getting to talk to you, whether it's like this. I know we've had a few conversations through like Messenger from Facebook that have gone for an hour, 2 hours. So it's.
That's what happens. And I tell Mel, I said, look, there was times when we would go to people's birthday parties or parties. I would bump into somebody that used to be a wrestler or done wrestling too, or is a wrestling fan, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh my god, I lost Kev for about 2 or 3 hours now. He's gone."
Oh. All right. Well, you guys have a good night.
You too.
I'm gonna go get myself a beer and get some pizza.
I'm gonna get some food, and I don't have no beer, but I'll get some. I'll get a nice bottle of water. There you go.
Oh, I probably should have some of those. I've been drinking the last 3 days pretty much nonstop.
Gotta flush that buddy out, man.
Yeah, I probably should, but I got all weekend for that still.
But but fans, tune in because soon we're gonna be building. We're gonna get this big panel thing going. Hopefully, I can get Mike and Jay in the same building. Hopefully, we can work on trying to get Josh too.
That'd be nice. Hell yeah, have everybody sit down and we'll sit there and we'll rate WrestleManias.
I want to do it
by all means. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if they're still in the comment section. JB, I almost said J. JB, Matt, Kate. I mean, by all means, throw your opinion in there too. It's in the comments section when we do this shit. You don't have to just sit there and watch and be silent. I mean, if you guys are tuned in, and feel free to speak up. There's nothing but love and respect here still.
Also, to let everybody else know too, that there's a big interview that I'm doing. It's a guy that I found on TikTok who's a cosplay Undertaker who looks and talks just like Mark Calloway. And getting him on the show here soon. And he's going to be dressed in his Undertaker gear.
That'd be awesome.
And it's going to be interviewing him like I would probably try to interview the Undertaker, and hopefully I don't get choke slammed or struck by lightning or whatever else happens. But
it'd be a TikTok or Snapchat filter for that one.
Yeah. Anyways, though, guys, thank you guys for watching. You guys watch later on. Post your comments down below what you thought. What you think wrestling's going to be in the next 15, 20 years. Mike gave you his. I gave you my advice on what can happen. And appreciate JB and Jay in the comment section. I know that Jay wants everybody to look at his balls, but I ain't got time to look at nobody's balls right at the moment. So.
Got more important shit to look at. Maybe later.
But anyways, though, also support Josh. I know that Jay was doing a thing with him on his
Yeah, it's Joshua Turbo on Twitch.
Yeah.
Even still, show some love to the wrestling show, guys. I mean, it's got the guys and gals that are on there. We work hard at what we do. I mean, we work hard to try to, regardless of any bad blood in the past, any miscommunications, anything. We all love the business. We all just want to put on the best show that we possibly can. So.
Oh, Jay just said him and Josh would argue the entire time, which is probably true.
It is a good possibility.
But anyways, Mike, man, go enjoy your beer, go enjoy your pizza. Thanks, man, for being on here. And Jay, watch this video
from the start.
From the start, because PK here has got something to ask you, and
so
dying to hear Jay's answer when he sees you, and hopefully Jay will answer you live when we go live next time.
Hopefully,
so that way we can hear it.
Yeah.
But anyways, though, thanks for everybody. Like, share, sub, show some support. I'm already up to 70 subs after being back after a long time. So
there you go. Trending the right way.
Give me some more guys. You can follow me on TikTok too. I'm Big Kev's World on TikTok. So you can follow me on there as well.
All right. Peace out. Have a good night, gentlemen. Everybody. Much love, much love.